Policeman kill black man for no reason. We send more. Dead man bleeding. Still breathing, we give him more. All of my brethren selling. Still do no telling. What out you melon? See the past the ganja round. Party boy hit the ground when that thunder sound. Bumper cuts can be found when I come around. They come down, they still rolling out the whole pound. They don't drown, them do not. We've been trying to kill each other. Peace, Devon. Happy New Black Media Appreciation Month.
I appreciate that. I literally looked down. It was 6:25. I looked up. It was 6:33. I said, "What in the hell just happened?"
Man, time likes to move like that on us. I get it. Well, I'm very happy to have you joining us for New Black Media Appreciation Month Music Space. Figured I'd start with, an oldie but goodie. Not really an oldie, but I feel like people don't really know about Buck unless it's like some old stuff, Like they have no idea he's still making music, but yeah, he's still out here. He's still churning.
I didn't know you were still making music.
Yeah, no, I think his thing with 50 and his rights to his music, that put a big damper on things. So he's, fighting against that, and I think he had some court cases too. So
Yeah, yeah. 50, man. It's a lot of drama. It's always drama surrounding him. It's like, yeah, and it's usually aimed at other black dudes, but that's a whole nother story.
actually, it's not really. It kind of is kind of what I want to talk about. I want to talk about being harmonious, right? Because I feel like when we're in harmony, we're on code. When everybody's doing what they're supposed to do, when they're in the role that they're supposed to be in, then that's actually a well-functioning, well-oiled machine, and that can actually get something done. I think about music when I think about people doing what they're supposed to do. Like if you play the brass, you're not going to be on strings. I mean, you're not. I mean, you might, but you're
Yeah,
not really. Like,
right.
so I thought about you because I don't know, you break down the music. I think it's because you're an educator. I know that you've also coached, you play instruments, you kind of a renaissance. Uh, hey, there we go. We've got modern Renaissance men around us. So shout out to
Modern.
you.
Yep. Yeah, I really just a dude with ADD that get bored real fast, and then when I figure out when I like something, I want to learn everything about it. you know,
I get
that's
I
the
get that
thing.
though. It's like I feel like I'm a Jill of all trades, but a master of none. I'm working on being a master at something. I feel like that's actually where you need to be.
Well, I look like this. Uh, you got to finish off that whole thing. Jack of all trades, a Jill of all trades, master of none. But to be a jack of many trades, it's better to be the master at one. You know,
Hey,
it's,
I've
it's
never actually heard the rest of that. So
yeah, it's
shout
better
out
to
to
be a
you.
jack of
Hell
many.
yeah.
Yeah, it's better to be the jack of many trades than the master of one. What happens if you were the person you mastered making tapes you mastered mixing VHS tapes VHR remember those VCRs, and you knew how hard they were back in the day to time the program, and you mastered that shit and you was really good at that. Then the VCR went out of style. You know what I mean? Or you master. You got these people, they master a certain thing, and that thing goes out of style. What do you do next? So plus a lot of times, yeah, I'm sure there's certain things you master. Like I look at me, I'm a jack of many trades. I call myself jack of many trades, master at most, not all. But like drums and music, I put in my 10,000 hours. I started playing the drums when I was 13, 14. I played the drums in church for 20 years, every Sunday, two Sundays a week, midweek service. I played. I appreciate the cash app. Happy New Black Media. I appreciate that, Eve. Um, I um I played the drums in bands, in three different bands when I was in college. When I was in college, I used to only sleep like 4 hours a night in college. I would go to work, go to school, hoop, play basketball, play. I play like in two different bands, you know. So I put in my 10,000 hours with music, even though I stopped playing a lot of music about 10 years ago. I really pulled back about 10 years ago, and I'm just now getting back in the groove in the last year and a half. I put in my 10,000 hours. When same thing with comedy. Comedy, like I started comedy when I started slowing down with music. I started slowing down with music in the late 2009, 8 era. That's when I picked up comedy. And I started doing comedy a lot from 2009 to like 2010 to like 2016. I was on stage 5 nights a week, you know, and sometimes 3 or 4 stages a night because that's what it takes to get good in comedy. And although I pulled back and started doing comedy less around 2016, and I'm just now really starting to get back into it, I never stopped. Like I would never go before the virus hit. I would never go no more than a week without getting on stage, or every other week without getting on stage. Since the virus, I'll probably go 6 months without getting on stage sometime now. But I put so many hours into it. When I get on stage, just like riding a bike, it's just let's go make these niggas laugh. So I put in time, and that's how I think we gotta look at it with our different things. We look at whatever talents that we have and we compare them to other people, and we be like, well, I'm not good at this person than that. I'm not good as that person in this thing. I'm not good as that person in that thing. But really, it's not about other people. It's about this. Like life is golf. You know what I mean? You trying to beat yourself. That's what this is about. You trying to beat your own best score. And I think that goes into what we're talking about, like harmony and on code, because in order to be in harmony, you got to be first. If we're harmonizing in A flat, yo, you better make sure yo hit that A flat. It ain't no harmony if I'm singing on note and you not. It ain't same thing with being on code. There is no being on code until you're on code with yourself. Everything starts with one. And that's the George Clinton philosophy. Everything back to the one. Started with James Brown musically. James Brown made it a musical thing. George Clinton made it a spiritual thing. He took James Brown's, put it back to the one, and he expounded upon the one, and he made it a whole spiritual philosophy. And that's what made Parliament Funkadelic, what set them apart. Well, that's what actually set them and Earth and Fire apart. Those were highly, deeply, extremely spiritual bands, and their music was spiritually based. Although they didn't preach to you overtly, they were speaking to you from not only a metaphysical point of view, but also an astrological point of view. Part of the Funkadelic was extremely astrological. They were all about, the Sirius star system, and that's what the mothership comes from. The mothership came from the Sirius star system, and from Sirius is where we get the information of music, and that we get the concept of the one. And one is when we all come in together. And the way they emphasize that music philosophy is when it was time to play music, they overly emphasize the one on the song. And I'm glad you're talking about this. So usually I'm outside on my porch, and so y'all can hear sirens and shit. This time I'm actually in my house, and I'll give you an example right here. Um, I'll give you an example on this song when they talk about stressing the one. If y'all can hear, let me know if this is hurting your ears or not. I'm about to put this phone to the speaker, but I'm giving an example of the one. Oh, we gonna get all the mother sucker. One. 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 Here comes unison.
No, we can't hear it, Dwan.
You can't hear?
Mm-mm. What song are you playing? I feel like I know what song you're playing.
Give Up the Funk by Parliament. Can you hear now?
Mm-mm.
Ah, shit. Whatever. Okay, well, I can just jam out to y'all. Y'all can't hear, y'all won't hear no background music. Well, anyway, Give Up the Funk by Parliament Funkadelic. When they go, we want the funk, that everyone's singing in unison on one. And the spiritual philosophy with that is, and the way George Clinton took that out philosophically, musically, was in life, we all live life on our own terms. We all live life doing our own thing, and how that would play out musically in his band Everybody in the band, he allowed the band members to play whatever they wanted throughout the measure, just like James Brown did. The only requirement is two requirements: make it every note be funky, and let's all come back together at one. And that's just how life is. You live your life on your own terms, in your own at your own pace, in your own world. But there's always that time for unity and coming together. That's why you go back to Big Mama's house on Sunday. That's coming back to one. That's what meditation is. In life we live our life, and we all running across this world, dealing with stresses and problems. Meditation is bringing you back to one. That's why they call it centering yourself. Um, and so in life, you always got to take care of one, and that's yourself. And although we're individuals and we do everything at our own pace, at our own time, when it comes down to it, it all got to come back to one if you want to make things pump and move forward. So I know that's a long ass goddamn answer. But yeah, so yeah, whatever questions you have or speakers, whatever.
I thought that was an excellent answer. And while I throw some stuff up in the jumbo,
What? Stop. Do that. You, I,
I hear it.
every time
Okay, I just wanted to go ahead
we,
and play it, just make sure the room got to
right?
hear a chance to hear it.
Every time they say we, they're singing that in unison, and because unison is one, and then they go back into harmony, harmonize, then back into unison, harmonize, back into unison, one. And in life, there's this push pull. That's just the push pull of life. And I would coach the same thing in basketball. And in order for my team to be great, everyone has to be a great individual. You got to be great at whatever your skill set is. And you cannot look at the next person's skill set and be envious or say, I wish I could do that, wish I could do this. You play your own goddamn game. And that's how it is with music. Like you said earlier, the strings can't be horns and the horns can't be strings. If you're a string, you play the shit out that string and play it as funky as you can play it. And you being your best individual person is just gonna make the collective great. And that goes back to being on code. That's why like I have fun. Like all these dudes that be running around talking about what Tariq should do with his museum, and what Jason Black is doing wrong, and what Claude Anderson said wrong. And I'm the leader. And you got a lopsided forehead, and you got all that shit that's going on. I look at these people like, all y'all wrong. Why are you looking at Jason or just because the cats got a good message? Why are you looking at them for them to lead you? You need to lead your goddamn self. They give you information for you to use, and it's a lot of people out there. They may say things that you can't use because they may be on a vibration you're not on. You may not get down with what they saying. So if you can't use it, just move on. You know what I mean? But if you can use it, use it. And then you got these other people saying, "I'm the leader. I'm the leader. Follow me." Man, ain't nobody winning shit following one person. Who's the leader of white supremacy? Answer that. You know what I mean? It ain't no goddamn leader. Everybody got to be on code, and being on code is being on code with yourself and developing your skill set. And that's a lesson that you learn in music, and those lessons you learn in music, they permeate like throughout other parts of your life. You know what I mean? So, so all that when people talk about something, I want somebody else to lead me, that means you're not willing to play your part. And if I'm a leader, the last thing I want is if when I pass you the ball, that's what made Kobe so goddamn great. Because Kobe got to the playoffs with a player named Smush Parker and Kwame Brown. Every time Kobe passed him the ball, out of bounds, nigga couldn't catch. Well, they fumbling, they missing layups. It's like, dude, how can I win when you wonder why I don't pass you the ball? I can't win when I finally do pass you the ball, you don't do nothing. If James Brown, when he did his funky drummer, if when he said give the drummer some, the drummer fumbled his sticks and started losing the time and messing up the beat, that drum solo wouldn't have become the most sampled drum solo in history. Yes, it's James Brown's band, but the drummer got the most of the sample because he was on point and he made the band look good and he made himself look good. And that's the mindset people got to adopt when it comes to dealing with white supremacy. When it comes to what we're dealing with, you got to be if I'm the band leader and I say get a drummer some, and then your ass go around and you mess up the song, you gonna fuck us all up. Even though you the one that messed up. I ain't the one that messed up. I'm over here on trumpet. I ain't messed up. You did. But your mess up is gonna screw all of us up. So that's why it's so important to be uncoded and not look for leaders and spend all of your damn time being the best thing that you can be. And when someone who does say something that comes along and says something that points you in the direction of a certain thing or give you an idea, you take that skill set that you have and you impose that on whatever idea we talking about. You know what I mean?
Facts, facts. Everybody has to play their role. That this is where we are. We're in an age, I believe it's because of the whole participation trophy aspect of it all. I believe that it happened in the 90s. Everybody was told that they were doing a good job just being here. Like you are just it, you
Yeah.
know, like and really fucked up a lot of people if you
Yeah,
really think
yeah.
about it, because you didn't earn the accolades, you were just given accolades. So then everybody thought that they could be the point guard. You got 7 foot point guards, what is that? But I mean, if you 10,000 hour rule, I'm with that. You know, if you've mastered what you want to do, then okay, you can be a 7 foot point guard. But um that's not everybody, you know, just because you don't want to stand under the rim, you know, and get the rebound, you know, and do the blocks and stuff, doesn't mean that your role isn't important, but everybody doesn't see the importance in their role. You know, they
I
don't. Go ahead.
now you're 100% about roles because basketball and a music example. Like in basketball, the reason what made Michael Jordan so great was the fact that Dennis Rodman got every rebound and he set great screens and he was such a great defender. They didn't have to double team Karl Malone because all you needed was one player. Because if I don't have Dennis Rodman, Karl Malone, anyone else, Karl Malone's going to eat up in those two finals. And I'm going to now have to double team him, which now compromises my defense. I have to leave someone else open. But Dennis Rodman was so great at what he did, it allowed Michael Jordan to score and close out games. Scottie Pippen was so great at what he did, he set the table. He got the geometry right on the court. He got the floor spacing right. And because Scottie Pippen got the floor spacing right, because Dennis Rodman set the greatest screens, because Steve Kerr hit his open jump shots, because in basketball, if my shooters are missing shots as a coach, all I gotta do if I'm designing a defensive game plan, if two players on the court can't shoot, all I gotta do is people I have guarding them, all right, leave them niggas open and go double team the good guy. So the greats can't be great unless the shots are falling. That's why, like when LeBron came to the Lakers the first year he got here, before the Lakers were any good, the Lakers didn't make the playoffs, and LeBron looked hella regular because the players on the Lakers could not shoot. And when he didn't have any shooters, and the double teams got to focus on LeBron, LeBron looked hella regular. So he faked an injury and missed the last third of the season. So his fan base won't have nothing to get mad at. But then you bring in these great shooters that keep the floor space. I can't double team. Now that allows LeBron to have wide open lanes to the basket. He gets to go back to being LeBron James. Same thing with sport or with music. In music, I don't care how good my singer is. I don't care how good my keyboard player is. If the drummer's not in time, if the drummer and the bass aren't in sync, if the drums and bass aren't in pocket together, if they're not in groove together, the rest of that song is gonna suck. I don't care how good the keyboard licks are. I don't care how you can sound like Whitney Houston, Aretha, Stephanie Mills. It don't matter. If the rhythm section is off, you're gonna suck. And the same thing, and if the whole band is great, but the sound engineer, the sound man, got the mics set up wrong, you're getting feedback, the music's going to suck. It don't matter how good the performance is as musicians. That's the hardest part about live performing. You can have the greatest pocket as a band, but if that audio mix ain't right by the sound engineer, the sound man got that mix wrong, I don't give a fuck how good you playing. all ain't none of that gonna sound good. So what does that tell you? There are no big eyes and little me's. You know, yes, the singer gets to be the big eye, you know what I mean, and do all the stuff because everything else is tight. It was something that was said in the if you go back and watch that Jackson family movie, the movie about the Jacksons, and there was a scene to where one of the kids said, you know, let's just have Michael, let's just have Michael, he could do all the James Brown's moves. Let's just have Michael out front. And then you hear Joe say, "Well, we don't, well, Michael don't have James Brown's band, so we can't. Basically, we can't put Michael in that position because we don't have a band that can support his talent." You know what I mean? That's what he was saying. That's the part that in that movie that it kind of just got thrown in there, but that was a very critical message he made right there to people. The star is nothing without everything else falling in line. So the logical conclusion is there are no big eyes and little me and little U's. It's all of us. It's the collective. Michael Jackson, the Off the Wall album, the Thriller album, you're talking about the greatest ensemble of musicians ever. You talking about you have Joe Sample from the Jazz Crusaders on keys, on one key. You got Greg Fillinganes, the most recorded keyboard artist of all time, on the other set of keys. You got Louis Thunder Thumbs Johnson from LA, by the way, one of the greatest bass players ever from the Brothers Johnson on bass. You got Wah Wah Watson on guitar, who done played with everybody from James Brown to Earth, and Fire, one of the most recorded guitarists ever. Paul Jackson Jr. on guitar. You have George Duke that was playing some keys. You have James Ingram singing some background, and I mean, you have uh, the 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 set of musicians that were on those albums. It's just like that energy into Michael Jackson. It propelled Michael Jackson to another level. Not saying he wasn't great. He was great, and he still is great. But it's the fusion of everyone coming together that on code, everyone in harmony, everyone on code with one common mission, and the mission has to be to make the song great. That goes back to being on code with us as black people. That's why you never see me getting into all these beefs between Twitter space groups and shit like that because my thing is as long as you care about reparations, if you got a different way of doing it and I don't understand it, look, I'm not smart enough to understand everything. I know that about myself. So I'm not gonna spend time arguing with you. As long as you ain't hurting us, you know, getting in our way and saying a whole bunch of dumb shit, then I'm gonna leave you alone. And the people I can fuse and gel with, I'm a I'm a fuse and gel with. It's like that in music. In music, it's certain mixes that just don't work. Like sometimes, like I talk to my father-in-law all the time about being in the studio back in the 70s and 80s. You can have the greatest drummer, but that drummer don't fit like for this song. Because I asked him, I said, did you ever record any music with Bernard Purdy? Bernard Purdy is the most recorded drummer ever. And he was saying he did a few songs with him, but for a lot of his music, the Purdy sound wasn't what he needed. And then we were talking about like James Jamerson. James Jameson's probably if you listen to go watch that movie, Standing in the Shadows of Motown. They really dig into who James Jamerson was, the greatest. And see him playing the bass on What's Going On. All of those Motown, most of those Motown hits was James Jamerson. And I asked him, I said, did you record with Jamerson a lot? He said Jamerson was one of those that you had to know Jamerson was gonna play Jamerson. And if you was a producer, say you want someone to play boom, 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 you knew Jamerson wasn't going to be disciplined enough to just play that bass line throughout the whole song. Jamerson, when he gets to boom, 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 at some point he's gonna go boom, 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 doom, 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 he's gonna add his flavor in it. And if you got to know that. So if you want a particular song over here that doesn't require that extra, you can't. Don't hire James Jamerson. He hire somebody else. You know. Versus when Marvin Gaye did the "What's Going On" album, he needed somebody to float through the music. So he went and found James Jamerson was drunk in a bar somewhere in Detroit. They could not find him. Marvin Gaye had Motown people scout all the bars throughout Detroit, and they found Jamerson drunk as fuck and brought him into the studio, and he recorded those great bass lines loaded. But that's who he was. Why did I say all that? although philosophically we cannot get along with certain people within the movement, yeah, we just don't mix. It don't mean y'all ain't great, I ain't great, or they wrong, I'm right. It just means y'all gotta stay over there for this particular song, and I'm gonna stay over here for this particular song. And I'm not gonna get in your way, we not gonna get in my way. And have that mutual understanding because every song ain't gonna be for everybody to play. And just because we can't play this song together don't mean there's something wrong with you and something right by me. We got to understand that. But when you do find your group, your people you with, you got to stay on code. And the code is to make whatever to get whatever it is we want out of this particular thing. And in music, the code is making the song great. So the code in music is if I'm playing a lick, I'm on the drums. I'm gonna tell you. Let me give you some codification on music as a drummer. As a drummer, my primary responsibility is to lock down the pocket of the song. That's my job. That's number one. Everything else comes secondary. I have to keep the time and I have to keep a pocket for the bass, the keys, the singer, and everyone else to fall into. If my pocket is wavering, it doesn't give them anything to fall into. So as a drummer, I got to be on code one with the pocket and the song. And if I can get a feel in the song that meshes with the flavor of the song, fine. But if I have to overpower the song to get my double paradiddle roll, 5-stroke roll, and it messed up the song, then I broke code. Which when I break code, it messes up the song. So I have to be on code with the song first. And I have to put the song before ahead of my professional skill. Same thing with the keyboards and the trumpet. You on keys, and sometimes you on keys. Your job on this particular song is to just play underneath the music. If you can pull up a song, Eve, I know you just played it. Let me give you an example. Pull up a song by the Gap Band called "I Don't Believe You Want to Dance," the extended version, the 8-minute version. Pull up that song by the Gap Band. "I Don't Believe You Want to Dance," and I'll give you a musical example of what I'm talking about with that song. It's the layering of the music that makes the music be great. And when you layer music, everyone that's playing their layer, sometimes your layer might just be a particular like on the keys to this particular song, he's sort of playing out of time but underneath the music. And then the congos are just playing boop, 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 boop. That's all he's playing the whole song is boop. And then the bass is just playing 1, 2, 3.
I got you. I got you.
Go ahead and play that. Listen to this layering. Here comes the bass. Drums are very disciplined. Kick hi hat, kick hi hat. Here comes keys. Here comes the bass again. Just listen. Here's on that bass. Get the guitar. Get the congos. Everybody is playing something extremely simple. Nobody is playing anything complex.
Facts.
Nobody's playing over trying to say, look at me, look at me. Everybody is playing a very simple line. But the meshing of everyone doing just a simple job crescendos into something that still gets sampled 35, 40 years later. There is no hip hop without that. Snoop's upside your head. Come on now. I mean, but it all it took was for everyone to play a simple part. And that's something that we need to understand when it comes to being on code. So it's always them niggas like when it comes to certain groups of people out there that want to take credit for everything. Look at me, look at me. Sit your ass down. Like, this ain't about look at me. This is about the win. And I get when you're young, sometimes it could be like that. But you got cats in their 50s and 60s still talking about, look at me, look at me, look at me. God damn it, it's not my fault your daddy didn't give you no attention. Sit your ass down. And that's what people just got to understand about this whole thing. Sit your ass down. Wrestling from the back of the day had the perfect when the Rock will be in the room. What did the Rock say? Know your role and shut your mouth. That's some real shit. Know your role and shut your mouth. And express your bullshit in your own time. I know that's a lot, but I don't know if there's any questions or comments.
Nah, yeah, no, I think we're definitely on the money with regards to what I wanted to talk about tonight. Peace to the room. Happy New Black Media Appreciation Month. I'm here with my brother Dwan. We're having a little chat about the music, about harmony. I see you, Miriam. Peace to you, sister. Welcome to the stage.
Peace to you, Sister Eve. Good evening, and peace to you, Brother Dewan B. It's always a pleasure to be in a space with you, and just love your analysis on music and cross reference to what it is that we are should do as far as keeping with not only the rhythm, not only with the tone in sync with the beat, but being codified in doing so. And you could pretty much use a music um, analogy to um, life in general. Because, as you were saying, if everybody wanted to say, look at me, or wanted to be a lead, or do what they wanted to do, then it'd just be a lot of loud instruments making a lot of noise instead of being in harmony and creating a very beautiful melody. Um, so definitely on point with that. And I like you were saying, in one of your other spaces, Brother Dewan B, when you had Barry White or you had um, Gordy or the likes of those great men, why they were composers and producers, and yes, they had experience with the instruments themselves, but they also delegated or got those who could fill in and to do certain things with instruments. You have a rhythm or a beat in your head, but you can't necessarily do the sound, but you could get someone who do know how to do the sound. So we're all great in our own ways. We all contribute in our own ways to come together to make a symphony. And that brings me to like one of the greats. Isaac Hayes was cold too. He was cold in what he did. So was Roger Trapman. Um, those brothers was cold. And then of course you already mentioned some of the greats, Earth, Wind and Fire, and other bands of that nature. Rufus and Shaka Khan and their band, the Ohio Players. We can go on because that was just such great soulful music. And especially when you go back to dealing with the Funkadelics. Um, one of my favorite albums is Maggot Brain. Um, my goodness, some of the music just you have to be on just a certain vibratory headspace when you listen to it because it is spiritual. It does transcend into the metaphysical, and as you said, they were astronomically connected with Ceres and some of the other um, systems in our solar system. Some of the other planets, you have Ceres A and B, and it goes back to the one, the whole, the uniting force, which connect you um, to just a higher elevation, if you will, to your God self, because music is also known as the soul catcher, because it moves the soul, and that's something we have a great overstanding as a people. We always have, especially foundational Black Americans, because no one does funk, rhythm, blues, jazz, gospel, and all the other multi little genres that arrive from that the way we do, and often um, imitated but never duplicated. So I'll say that now. Yield my time. Thank you.
Oh yeah, thank you for that, thank you for that. Um, Anybody else got any comments or anything? I answer questions. If y'all got questions, raise your hand. I see Sincere down there, Sunny, Summershot, musicians down there. So
I'm
we talking.
saying it's a few musicians in the room. I would love for y'all to come chop it up with us about the harmony. Maybe you've been in a band and that nigga just would not play the right part. Or maybe y'all know, look, here's something that makes me so sad are these aspiring rappers, but they haven't made it. And it's not that they don't sound good, they just don't know the right people, I guess. And then if you don't know the right people, it's like a dime a dozen. It's a bunch of people out here who can rhyme, but what makes you special? I don't know. I think maybe you're not doing the right role. Maybe you're not supposed to be on the mic. Some harsh realities that people got to face when the math ain't mathing quite like they wanted it to math.
He cold.
I'm just
Yo,
saying. Like
hey,
I try to support, especially if it sounds good, but it's like where
yeah,
are we
so
going?
what it is, a lot. Here's the thing when it comes, and this is why I was saying I'm actually not tripping on AI music at all. Like, cause I know, I know, I know, like I know. When it comes to us and our soul, when we do it right, there's no machine that can get in the way. The issue is with all the technology that's entered music over the last 40 years since the 80s. It's made music accessible to everyone. And people who should be taxi cab drivers or DJ, people who should probably be like a Rihanna, she should probably be a model. She's a beautiful woman. She should probably be an actress. She's not a singer, but the technology allowed her to be a singer. The technology, has allowed people to get big names. The technology has allowed people like Puff Daddy to just basically loop shit. Don't even change the key. Don't change nothing. Just loop a bunch of shit and get somebody to sing over it. Technology has brought in mediocrity to music. And music for the last 40, really, especially the last 30 years, music has been like the only place to where the mediocre can get to the top. Like if I were to judge music since the 90s, starting in the late 80s into the early 90s, starting in the late 80s, on the R&B side, and then on the hip hop side, as you get into the late 90s, it's like if we're talking, take using a basketball example, it will be like the developmental league or one of those trash ass European leagues, um, where the people run like they have two left hips. It will be as if those people were the NBA, and the NBA guys will be cast off into playing some old random league in Brazil or where they don't get paid anything. Well, that's how it's been with music over the last 30 years, since 35 years now. The 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 less talented have been running everything. And then when you do have talent, the talent is being suppressed by the less talent. And this is what I mean by that. You'll hear some stuff that's recorded in the studio. The producer did the shit right. It's musical. The singer done belted it out, and the music sounds great. And then here comes some less talented, no talented ass person in the suit, usually with a name or the last name like Horowitz or some shit like that, or Getz, and they'll come and say, "Hey, that's a little bit too aggressive. Why don't you redo the song and pull back and make it something that people can sing along to?" So the suits will have the musicians and the producer totally dumb down the song that dumbed down version of the song that is now just sounds like a basically pseudo karaoke song. That's what gets released. And oftentimes, and I really realized that when I had these women out there used to go sing in my church named the Johnson Sisters. They later on to became a singing group out of the late '90s that called JS. And I remember them at church when I was a kid. Them three women can sing their ass off. I mean, sing. One of them ended up marrying Ron Isley. The other sister married Philip Bailey, the lead singer of Earth and Fire. They got married around the same time. I think the one that got married to Philip, I think they're divorced. But the one that married Ron Isley, they're still married. But they came out under R. Kelly, and R. Kelly released a song called Ice Cream in like 98, 99. And when that song dropped, these extremely talented sisters that can sing. When I tell you that three-part harmony was on the level of the Emotions and the Jones girls. These women had they had three-part harmony for your ass. But when that song got released, they were whispering. And that's what the late 90s were all about whispering. They even had Mariah Carey, as great as she sings, they had her whispering in it. If you go back and listen to Vision of Love Mariah, then listen to late 90s Mariah. She goes into um she whispering and shit. And all that late 90s was when that whisper era came. And you had people who could really sing their ass off whispering. And then from the whispering in the late 90s into the early 2000s, you get into the straight up, that's when Estelle comes and tell me now I want to sing. And you get all these foreign motherfuckers come singing. That foreign people get to sing, but the American black women have to whisper. And you know, and then it devolves further into Rihanna, and then the weekend and all this shit that we got right now. But that started out of that '90s whisper era. Really, just they you had the women and the men around who could actually sing and belt out a note, it was the people in the suits, the less talented ones, made them play and dumb their game down, and then they started to bring in less talented people to where now your people who can really sing, they're relegated to singing at church, doing random jazz gigs and these little open mics. I mean, these open mics here in LA all the time with the music. There's some singers out there, y'all. I'm on this scene. It's some motherfucking singers out here. I don't know if you remember that dude back in the day. He gay as fuck, but he's still a homie. Cool as fuck. James Wright. If y'all remember that Patty Pie, y'all remember the Patty Pies dude that was like Patty Pies, and yeah, I remember that dude hit the emoji if y'all remember him. Well, me and James, we went to high school together. He was in choir. We were in choir together. I was on the drums and he was singing. That motherfucker James Wright can sing his ass off. And there used to be this thing called R&B Live here in LA where it would be like these singers featured with a live band. And sometimes Stevie Wonder would drop in. Sometimes Prince would drop in when Prince was alive. It was one time I was there, Prince just dropped in and shit, we went all the goddamn night. That's the beauty. That's why the rent is expensive in LA. Shit, you pay for nights
That's a
like
hell
that.
of a memory. God damn.
Yeah, let's see Prince drop in. I see Bobby Brown drop in and get on stage. I mean, everybody dropped in and got on stage. Charlie Wilson when he was around, but James used to sing. It was like once a month on Tuesdays in LA. Um, and so James would sing, and no matter who professional got up, James would sing their asses through the ground. Did James ever get a big deal? No. James had to write for these other dudes that need an auto tune. And so the real singing in music, the real people, they get relegated to the minor league. AI, what that's gonna do, all these producers, if the only thing you can do is copy and sample, guess what? AI is going to copy and sample better than you, homeboy. If the only thing you can do is when it's time for you to sing, if you don't actually hit that F sharp with your vocals that God gave you, if you can't actually hit that C sharp minor ninth with the vocals God gave you and you need auto tune, guess what? Auto tune is going to out sing your ass. This whole AI thing is going to take out all these mediocre motherfuckers that have been dominating and controlling our music over the last 3 decades. It's going to render them irrelevant. because it's going to do it better than them. And so, what does that mean? That opens up space for the people who actually took time to learn instruments. It's going to open up space for people who actually take time to refine their voices to sing. Because when it comes to music, no AI, no program can outdo the human. See, we got this thing as us Black Americans, especially Black Americans. Nothing, because our music is called soul music for a reason. It comes from our soul. And what they've done with all of this dumbing down the music and taking the live instrumentation out, the effect is it's removed the soul. So soul has been effectively removed out of the music over the last 30 years. So replacing that shit, that pop top 40 shit with AI, that's nothing because you have people who are 25, 30 years old who, if they didn't take time to dig deeper in the crates, if they only listen to what come on the radio, they've never experienced real soulful music if they only listen to what's on the radio and they're 30, 35 years old. They don't know what it is. So they're going to easily go for that AI shit. But when it comes to music itself, that soul, the people who actually look for music, you're going to find the next crop of music stars, and you can record this space and say I said it. The next set of real stars in the next 5, 6 years, they're going to be real people who can actually play music because there's something in all of our souls that connects to real soulful music. And we've gone without it. And the minute new people come along that actually give us that, they're going to start to go to the forefront. They may not get the mainstream push. Like look at Anderson Paak. Anderson Paak been a soulful guy for the last 10 years. They didn't want to finally start giving him credit until he had to lower himself to perform with Bruno Mars. That was Anderson Paak had to lower himself. I'm not shitting no shade to Bruno Mars, but that's two different levels of musicians right there. And the real one, the real cat is Anderson Paak. But Bruno Mars, again, he's one of these people who they've dumbed our music down so much, he seems as if he's the real deal. And, so all of that stuff, man, these metaverse concerts that are coming up with these holograms and shit, man, that's going to take all that phony, fake ass music out. So I say it's a good thing. It's a silver lining around that cloud. Uh,
Absolutely. I'm kind of scared about the AI music because I think about the energy behind it. Like, what type of marching orders are people about to be on listening to some music that was created by a robot?
let me tell
Like,
you
are
something.
people thinking about that?
Let me tell you something. We've already been on that. Like
Yikes.
AI has already been around. Let me give you an example, and I use this example all the time. This is when I knew our minds had gone to shit when it comes to what we accept in music, and this is my generation because I was only 23 when this song dropped. 24, Laffy Taffy, uh, 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 that's a program, and then that Laffy Taffy, that's programmed. That's just warped. It ain't no movement. It ain't no, and who's telling what hurts that song was programmed at? What there are all times there what subliminal messages is playing underneath when you hear this doom 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 doom. When we accepted that, just like I said, that's on the rap end. On the R&B end, when we accepted Usher, and I don't like shit. I know a lot of people like Usher. And I'm not here to shit on Usher. If you like, I'm not saying you shouldn't like that. But what I'm saying is when do 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 when that gets to become a number one rhythm and blues hit, there was very little rhythm and no blues in that song. But so when that gets to be a top number one R&B hit, and again, I don't like that's why I don't shit on the kids. This is my generation that accepted that song. I was in my 20s. That song was targeting me when that shit dropped. I'm not that was that I'm a millennial. That's millennial ass music right there, boy. And so when that dropped and we accepted that, I can't criticize the next generation for accepting the weekend because we accepted that. And I'm not saying again, I'm not saying that that's bad, but that whole sonically, when you're not dealing with live musicians and you got this repetitive hook that's electronic and it just screws into your brain. That's why music today, like they can make you have a hit. They can make you like a song just by repeatedly playing it. So when you go back to that, that's basically AI music. Without at least Usher used his voice. But then, but we get to listen to B2K. B2K, what the fuck was that? That music, I'm just being realistic musically. What the fuck was B2K? That was gimmick music. We accepted that shit. I'm a millennial. My generation accepted that shit. You know, we accepted a love song in the late 90s. And I'm stepping on some toes. I'm sorry, y'all, but we got to be real. We accepted a love song that said, "Meet me at the altar in your white dress. We ain't getting no younger. We might as well do it." Let me tell you something. That's the weakest ass goddamn reason to ever fucking get married. We ain't getting no younger. See,
Might as well.
I,
I always think that when I hear you talking about that song, because you're not wrong. You're absolutely right. Like the the creativity is not there at all.
think about this. Smokey Robinson had a song that said easy. It should be it should be it's easier to take the wet from water and the dry from sand than anything to take my love from you. Nigga, how do you go from that? How do you go from the Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes? Oh, Eve, were you playing the music through your phone to make it work?
Yeah, through my phone.
Oh, okay, I could do that. Shit. Look at this. How do you go from that from oh shit. God damn it. These iTunes be tripping. Now I had a song queued up for your ass. And that song is not working. But how do you go from um the whole town's laughing at me? Hear that? Nope.
The music is not liking you
It's not
today.
liking me. Well, anyway, I was playing The Whole Town's Laughing at Me by Harold Melvin and Teddy Pendergrass. The whole town's laughing at me. You silly fool. How'd you lose such a good thing? How do you go from that? How do you go um from Smokey Robinson had another great song. He had a song called that he wrote for the Marvelettes. It's called Hunter Gets Trapped by the Game. That song, that's in that song, he's saying basically how what's this whole world coming to? Things ain't the same. Anytime the hunter gets trapped by the game. Basically, he's talking about how he was basically seeking out his companionship and looking for chasing a woman. Well, he wrote it for the Marvelettes, so they're talking about chasing a man, and then the man turning around, and then I mean they thinking that they chased them down, then they ended up falling in love and fell into the vulnerable position of being the one getting chased. And I mean, how do you go from that level of complexity in writing to meet me at the altar? We might as well do it. Like that's an extreme devolving of lyricism. Like we always talk about lyricism in hip hop. What about lyricism in R&B? You know, even so we got to know that we've been when it comes to AI, when it comes to what's coming. If you're I'm 41. If you're my age and younger, we've grown up into this. And unless you've taken time to disconnect from the radio and play that neo soul sound or the underground hip hop sound, the alternative, what they call alternative, unless you took time to listen to some damn Jill Scott and some Anthony Hamilton, unless you took time to listen to some Common before he became a pro Democrat. I ain't talking about now Common. I'm talking about that Common before he became a Democratic professional white ass kisser, old school Common. If you didn't take time to listen to the Outcasts and the people, and they were popular, but different groups that weren't necessarily top 40, you did you didn't really we didn't get music. And that goes back to always take it back to we are like Neely Fuller always says, you always want to go back to the usual suspect. This isn't some out of nowhere thing. The white paper report of the early 70s, I talk about this shit all the time. They said in '73, we got these niggas' music. By the time 2000 comes, it's gonna be too far ahead for us. We got to stop this shit now. So by the time the late '70s came, they purposely the first thing they did was they removed the strings. They removed the strings. If you just go back and listen. Music before 1979, strings everywhere. Every song had a live violin session. By the time you got to 1981, outside of the Thriller album and some Lionel Richie stuff, because my father-in-law composed that, he's gonna put strings in everything he do. Atlantic Star, a few groups that he composed, the strings were for the most part done by the time you get to the early '80s. Then you take out the live drums and you replace them with programmed drums by the mid '80s. By the mid '80s, you taking out the background. You still have power lead singers, but the background singers are for the most part out of business by the time you get to '86, '87, '88. When that new Jack Swing era comes in, now the drums are gone, the strings are gone, and the background singers are gone, and it's just a producer doing everything, and no background singing. And in 10 years, you see this things go from this lush, beautiful sonic uh eargasm to plastic, and I'm not shitting on it, but it got very plastic, and that was all by design. It was controlled. It was also through budget. Black artists, you can't get enough budget to get a string section, a horn section, and promote your album. You better go buy this little funky ass beat and be happy, nigga. That's what they did with our music. White artists, like to this day, Adele, she get all the strings and the horns she want. Robin Thicke, they get everything they want. But if you Jasmine Sullivan, you might get one or two songs with a live arrangement, and everything else is going to be something that they don't have the budget. It was funny. I was talking to Kelsey. He's the bass player for the Free Nationals for Anderson Paak. We were talking one day at a bar. I was at a show, and we were talking about that song on the Ventura album. My favorite song, that "You Doing Too Much" by Anderson Paak. And if you go back and listen to that song, there's some strings and some really nice string arrangements on that song. So I asked him about that string arrangement, and he was just like, "Yeah, we had just enough of a budget to bring in like three strings, like, and they took those strings and made it a really lush, grand sound." And I was just thinking, like, damn, as dope as Anderson Paak is, imagine as great as that string arrangement was, what if he had the budget for a 64-piece string arrangement or orchestral arrangement? Because the string arrangement is great the way it is. But what if they had a full 32-piece or 64-piece orchestra behind it? How much more grand and lush it could have been. And if he was a white artist, he would have gotten the budget for that 64-piece orchestra to go behind it. But they were able to squeeze out just enough of a budget for three strings. That's what we've been dealing with as a people, and that's what we've been up against. And I think that um, as we move forward, we got to know that as musicians move forward, to focus on bringing those live arrangements back. Focus on doing whatever you can do to add as much instrumentation and lushness to your music. Because yes, it costs a lot more in the forefront, but that's the music that 50 years from now people gonna still listen to. When you go back and listen to Erica Badu's "Mama's Gun," that has some strings on it, very light, slight strings and horns. But "Mama's Gun," Baduism, D'Angelo's Untitled, all of D'Angelo stuff, the Maxwell stuff, all of that stuff that had that live sound from the late '90s, early 2000s, that shit sounds good. None of that shit went number one. It may have gone number one on the soul charts, but none of that shit crossed over. But I looked at today, Erica Badu announced that she's going to be at Crypto Arena, well, Staples Center. I'm LA, this Staples Center. She about to be at Staples Center in a couple months. And for somebody who was never featured prominently next to a lot of the other people of her day that were getting those top 40 looks, she's still selling out stadiums, and she hasn't released the album since 2010. That shows you the power of live instrumentation and how and the live soul going into your music, and how even if it doesn't pop off at number one right now, you still gonna be eating off that music 25, 30 years from now.
Facts. That authentic energy definitely gets the people moving. I appreciate everything that you've spoken on so far. Harmony is on code. Harmony equals on code. Tonight we've been speaking with our brother Dwan B about the music, about being on code, just giving him some appreciation because it is New Black Media Appreciation Month. So people who bring the message in a big way should get some appreciation. So this is that for him. I threw some things in the jumbotron if you want to support him. Peace to you, Chase. Welcome to the stage. What's up?
Black first, everybody. I hope everybody's doing good.
Black first, brother.
Uh,
What's going on?
Now I wanted to add on to what the brother Dwan was saying about the AI, and I'm into the tech space real heavy. And here's the thing: this is, we run into a conundrum with AI because if we don't get into programming AI and stuff like that, what you're going to wind up getting is a product, and you being an end user or a consumer, and the people who program the stuff is putting their own biases into the program. And I know, some folks is like, oh, nah, listen, man, 85% of the tech field, the programmers are white. And if you don't believe that they're putting biases into their programs, we just had a space 2 months ago where this company, there was an AI company, they were doing facial recognition out of LAX, and they detained 8 black people. 7 of them literally had to go down to the police station to go prove who they were, and then they looked at the company and they're like, oh, well, they let all the Europeans go through. And this was the whole thing that, what I was telling people, if we don't get into coding, if we don't get into programming, other people are going to be putting their own biases into that program. And, folks be off on the thing and they don't, they talk about, they don't really understand programming and all that stuff. If you could work Facebook and Twitter and do all of these different things on Instagram and stuff like that, that's pretty much basically how the tech works. You just have to sit down and make yourself comfortable with the technology and use that to your benefit, And I'll be doing a lot of stuff on the blockchain and everything like that and trying to bring awareness to folks. And I'm always left with the thing where they just want to be consumers, and that's not the right mindset. If you go look at our latest statistics in the tech field, that goes from anybody that's using technology in the United States. We're not that far behind white, Latinos, and Asians. Whites are at 26%. Latinos next are at 16%, and Asians are at 4%. We're at 10%. And that number's a little skewed because they're adding, they're not counting, black Americans and separately from other black people, that are over here. So, they lump, but we're not that far behind. We're 4 points behind Asians in that, so, I don't see why, we wouldn't or shouldn't get into the tech field, so I wanted to add that on there. And you're not going to get, with AI, you're not going to get what Dwan was talking about, that soul in the music, but it'll help you get you on your way. You know what I mean? For anybody that has aspirations. And that's coming from somebody who's not a proponent of using AI. I don't use AI for nothing. So.
Yeah, man. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. As far as the programming goes, you're right. Programming, the AI program is only going to get what the people who program the music put into it. And when you got these people putting what they put, they can't put soul in the music. They don't have it to put into it. Hell, half the black musicians I know ain't got no goddamn soul. So, and in the way I see it, but again, AI can help. for people. But the way I'm looking at it, honestly, is it's like for those who cook. I'm not really begging. My wife is a cook. She knows how to cook her ass off, and she does everything from scratch. And when I was used to eating other ways, I couldn't tell if something was from scratch or not. Once I got on my wife's cooking, and I could tell, the difference between food from scratch, and you see the difference. And no matter, even if we get black people programming AI, at the end of the day, there's something deeper I'm trying to get people to understand when it comes to music. Music is a straight up soul connection between you, your this telepathic communication with other musicians, and the universe. And it's a connection with your emotions. And AI can't emote. It can't emote no matter who puts it into it. No matter who's programming it, it can't emote. And music, soul music, is an expression of our emotions. That's why if you listen to any musician worth their weight, they'll tell you it's not about the note. It's about how you play the note. It's about the feeling. And music imitates, and the feeling is like that's what the difference in genres are. Genres, people get caught up in, this is heavy metal, this is blues, this is rock, this is funk. When really at the genesis of all the different genres of the same music, at the basis of it, my father-in-law talks about recorded music from back in the '60s. We were talking the other day about the golden days of recorded music. And he was talking about how, like, back in the '60s, they would have the first session might be at 8 in the morning. He said for some reason pop was always early. The pop session might be from 8 to 11. Then the next session might be a country western session from 12 to 3. And then he said the R&B was usually a little later. A lot of the R&B stuff, how niggas gonna nig. Whether you talking about the old school days or now, usually the R&B sessions were non-union. Niggas just kind of coming together after doing all their union gigs. And like us black people, like we are, being the community that we are, some of our music, the musicians couldn't necessarily afford a union gig, but the black that was putting together that song, the producer, so the black musicians who spent all day recording on those other songs and white songs, the country western songs, they would kind of come together at night and do non-union gigs, kind of little secret gigs for the black artists, being the traditional FBA culture of looking out for one another. But I said that to say, when you talk about that music, whether you talk about country western, blues, rockabilly, rock and roll, it was literally the same musicians. Literally. You'll hear some Paul Simon, White Boy, Vanilla Hit, and the same people playing, the session musicians playing that. 2 hours later, it was playing for Sam Cooke. Then 3 hours after that, they were playing for Willie Nelson. And then the next day, they was playing for B.B. King. When it comes to the different genres of music, they're just different expressions of emotion. And it's the emotion that makes the song. This is the emotion that you're putting into the music that deciphers the difference between a country western song and a funk song. The tempos are the same oftentimes. The notes are oftentimes the same, but it's the feeling that transmits that's the difference. And the feeling is the absolute supremely most important part of the music. And that's why these crackers done spent the last goddamn 40 years, 50 years doing what they can do to take the feeling out of the music. So when it comes to our music, it's like anything else. You can build all the AI you want, but no matter how AI it is, AI is always going, when it comes to music, AI is always, 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 always 100,000% of the time going to be Burger King and McDonald's. Always. That's what it's meant to do. This is made for mass consumption. It's not made for quality. It's not made to give you any substance. It's made to sound good, just like McDonald's is made to taste good. It's just made to sound good. It's not going to give you anything. And so when we put this education effort forward as far as how to tap into music, what it is, and when I say education effort, I don't care about other people. These Asians, these Latinos, these people who love vulturing our culture, look, they gonna make this AI music go #1. It's gonna be an AI artist that wins a Grammy before 2025. I can almost guarantee it. You know what I mean? They're gonna push. They like imitation versions of our music. So let them have it. For
Have you heard
us,
of Brother Dwan? Have you heard of that? They had produced. They went and made the data sets, and they compiled about like 100 different rap artists. And these guys, I want to say they're out of. I want to say that they're out of Apex Labs. I could be mistaken with that, but they created an AI. They used a guy from the UK's voice and his voice and his style and intonation and everything, but they used the lyrics compiled from 100 different rap artists to make up the data sets that made up this AI. So when they gave it a subject for it to write, and it wrote a couple songs and everything like that, and they asked to do the a live performance or whatever, man, this thing said the N word like 63 times in one song, 19 times in another one. You know what I mean? And it was like because they gave him the record deal off of the strength of the company doing their thing with the data sets and everything, right? The programs that's needed for this AI stuff. And I think that record deal lasts for a total. It lasted 6 minutes, and and
yeah,
after that,
I heard about that.
the record execs was like, "Nah, we're good." So the company said it was going to go up. Now, the interesting part, the guy's voice that they used from the UK, they just asked him to come in and to spit some bars and everything. He didn't know that they were actually using his voice for a thing, and he thought that hey, $1,800 and he get paid and everything like that. Whereas they got a deal for a couple of million, but then the deal got rescinded. So now he's
I
feeling a
remember
little
that.
cheated.
I don't want to get too deep off into that. I remember that. Yeah, I want to take to the subject, but yeah, it's when it comes down to it, this AI stuff and AI is definitely going to get better. It's going to get a lot better. But just like when you go back and listen to the 80s had those weird. You go back and listen to any 80s song. 80s had a whole bunch of weird ass fucking sounds. That's why most 80s music gets stuck in the 80s. 80s, boy. Remember back in the 80s, whatever happened to that 4-bar saxophone solo? It was like no matter what happened in a song in the 80s, it was always some motherfucker with a shag or a mullet playing a saxophone solo. Whatever happened to the saxophone nigga? By the time the 90s, the saxophone nigga was out of work and retired. But no more saxophone solos by the time you got to 1991. But between 81 and 89, every song had a saxophone solo. It was just this music became so formulaic in the 80s. And outside of the live saxophone solo, you had these funny sounding drums, these funny sounding keyboards. Go back and listen to Whitney Houston's first album. Great vocals, but listen to those. Go listen to the song all at once. The keyboard. It sounds like one of those. Remember them Casio keyboards we used to get if you was born in the 80s? Yeah, your sister got that little Casio keyboard for Christmas, and it made the little cheesy ass sounds. That's how it was in the 80s. But by the time you got to the 90s, the sounds got a little more refined. Then the 2000s, they've been refining these sounds over the last 4 decades, and to the point to where if you go back and listen to the first time a string was ever recorded on song was a song by Stevie Wonder called Village Ghetto Land. The song Village Ghetto Land, that was the first time a string section, a keyboard was used for a string section. And you can feel this. It sounds good because Stevie's playing it, but the movements aren't natural with the strings. Well, now when you hear a keyboard string section, it sounds pretty damn like a string section, but it still doesn't sound like a string section. Why am I saying all this? The technology always gets better, but it never hits. That's why when you listen, going back to what I was saying about the example of artists from the 90s and the 2000s, the artists that took the time to play a live sound, like Ashanti and Ja Rule, they were on top of the charts, at the same time that somebody like, say, Music Soul Child wasn't. But if the two are going through a concert, Ashanti and Ja Rule need to be on a concert with 15 other niggas from the 90s and from the 2000s in order to sell out a show. They're not going to sell out a show by themselves because that music just don't last. Now, if you get 20 of them niggas from that era, of course we're going to go because they all have one or two songs that we want to hear once or twice. But it doesn't, you can't compare it. Look at going back to the 80s, Anita Baker. Anita, the 80s was when music got real cheesy and shit with all them goddamn weird ass sounds. Anita Baker didn't fall for it. And when she came out with her music, she fought tooth and nail to keep the live sound. She did. Anita Baker's music from the late 80s still sounds like it did back then. With other music from those same decade, those same years, when they used the up-to-date current sounds and sonics, those songs may have sold more records then, but those songs are stuck back in the goddamn 80s. And Anita Baker's music's gonna live forever because she did it the right way. That's why I just keep saying all that AI ain't nothing to worry about. It's just AI is just kicking out niggas who shouldn't be musicians anyway. You in the way. Get out the way. We need some real musicians in the house. What's up, Sonny?
Yeah, peace to the brother Sonny, to the other new speaker on the stage. Look, what I was thinking about the 80s, they didn't have enough Tina Marie, right? They couldn't just plop a bunch of her all over the place because we started being able to interpret the sound. I feel like people said back in the day they didn't know that she looked like what she looked like, that she wasn't, that she's definitely an envelopian woman. And now, you can tell. I mean, they try to mimic our sound, but the energy is not the same. And I'm glad that
It
people
ain't.
are waking up to that.
You're right. I'm glad you brought up Tina Marie. And I'm getting to Sonny real quick. But I'm so glad you brought up Tina Marie because there are always white anomalies. One thing we got to remember as as Americans, for better or for worse, a lot of these crackers are our cousins because somebody's grandmama got raped. And so a lot of these crackers are our cousins. We're just going to tell the whole truth. And it only takes 2 generations to whiten up a bloodline of people. There are a lot of people who are currently white now who really do got some of that shit in their blood, some of our shit in their blood. We just can't tell by the way they look. And Dr. Clyde Winters talks about this. You go and study Dr. Clyde. This isn't me just trying to say let's come together. I believe in separation. So this ain't no we all need to come together bullshit ass talk.
And
Separation
for
is
the
good.
record, neither does Dr. Winters, just throwing that
Yeah,
out there. But, you're right. You're
but
right that the genetics is, they like to hide that from us, but you're right that they don't want us to know. Look, they don't want us to know that they have us in them. They want us to think that it's just inside of them naturally. And it's like, nah, that's
right,
actually not you. That's
right, right.
horrible.
Right. See, you get what's his name, the guitarist from Motown was a white boy, uh, the drummer from Stein and Family Stone, and Rufus Shaka Khan. These are white boys. The drummer that played on the Thriller on Michael Jackson's Off the Wall album, white boy. Rod Temperton, he wrote Off the Wall. I mean, he wrote Always and Forever by Heat Wave, and he turned around and wrote Rock With You by Michael Jackson. Rod Temperton is one of the greatest songwriters ever. You get these anomalies every now and again, and Tina Marie was one. Tina Marie was Venice Beach. She's an LA chick, and I know people who knew her. And Venice Beach was an eclectic area in LA. That's where on one block you got the Shoreline Crips. Across the block you got the Nazis, the white boys. Across the block you got the Mexicans. And that's always been like that was like the low rent area of the beach before gentrification. Every area of LA had a higher rent area and a low rent area. Venice Beach was a low rent, nestled between Marina Del Rey, pretty high rent, and Santa Monica, very high rent. And Marina Del Rey was in the middle. And in that you had this eclectic mix that in the 80s it was still, you had it all. And Venice High School kind of had it all. And then Tina Marie got brought in through Rick James. And they did like 3 or 4 albums on her before they finally released one. They didn't know what to do with Tina Marie. They just knew she had that voice. But Motown spent about 4 years with her before finally releasing a project. They had to really get her right. They really groomed her right through Rick James. And
and that's what really she was, and she had it. And another thing I'll say about Tina Marie, she was respectful of the culture. She never came in saying, "I'm white, I'm better than you guys." Everyone I know that knew her, I didn't know her personally, but everyone I know that knew her, they all said that Tina Marie, she was never came in as that white woman that was in charge. She kicked it with the black people. She went to black churches all the way through the time that she died. It was crazy because I was over a couple months ago. I was kicking it with Tashina, and Tashina was really close with Tina Marie, and she was just playing me some of her music that Tina sent her right before she died, and she was just telling me stories about kicking it with Tina Marie. Love went back on a set of Martin and shit like that, and just how dope and down Tina Marie was. And I think that's why, and black people show how we are. When you can do, when you can do what we do and you good at it, we will open up and embrace you. And if white folks learn the Tina Marie lesson and accept the embrace, but chill and kick it. Don't try to lord over us. And if you have Tina Marie's legend and her reputation is solid, set in stone for people from LA, anybody who knew anything about her, because she was one of the anomalies that were white, but she never turned around tried to claim the culture, and she never tried to lord over the culture. She nestled herself within the culture, and she knew how to sit her white ass down and just sing her music and stop all the rest of that bullshit. So yeah, Tina Marie, it's always gonna be a big love to her. I'm talking too goddamn much. My nigga Sonny on stage.
Peace, Sonny. Welcome to the state. Happy New Black Media Appreciation Month. Look, I think that you are Black media as well. Anybody who is doing the work, getting the message out there, it's
I
time to
agree.
be appreciated. So get some love. What's up?
Yeah, man. Peace to the family, man. Shout out to my brother Dewan, my sister Eve, everybody else, the rest of the family in the space. I think that yeah, it's always a great conversation when we talking about the music. I've been a part of the music industry for a while now. Everybody knows I own my own recording studio down in Orlando, Florida. We've been open for 6 years. East Room Suites, right off of Orange and Central on the fourth floor. We pretty much got the whole wing now. Um, three recording rooms, two lounges, in the kitchen. So if anybody down here in Florida that want to connect, and we book some studio time, whatever. We just had Rodney Jerkins in here not too long ago, and a few other people, man. So it, I just cut to the chase real quick, man. One of the things that I feel like, and this is just off the top of my head, but and just adding to the pot of the conversation, I feel like the pandemic actually exposed the whole music industry. I think that we should kind of look into that more and kind of build on that. Not necessarily in this conversation, but just in general. But I feel like that opens up a whole nother can of worms when we having a conversation, because being down here, like I was saying, like I'm trying to circle everything, make everything connect, tie back. But being down here, right, the studio is in the middle of downtown Orlando, and downstairs there's Club Tier, around is Club Beacham, it's Club Zen, it's clubs and bars all around where the studio is, and I live not too far. I live a few blocks from the studio, so I pretty much just walk back and forth to work. And when the pandemic had happened, everything was closed down, as far as like the clubs, and the pandemic was for a little minute, man. Especially down here in Orlando, Florida, a lot of people couldn't go outside and things like that, and a lot of people had to actually sit at home, spend time with their family, and actually listen to music. And I think that actually exposed the music industry, because when people were making music at a certain frequency that you only have to hear it in the club. Like you got to get intoxicated, you got to get a few drinks in you, and things like that. And when the pandemic happened, you were forced to sit down and actually listen to music. Like, hold up, you know what I'm saying? Like, and I feel like that kind of opened and shed a light on the music industry, because when you're at home and you're cleaning, doing the dishes, running the vacuum, you're not really listening to, a lot of the shit that they playing in the club. And if you do listen to it, you like, it's.
Hey, I don't
Go
I
ahead,
don't
go
want
ahead,
to
Dwan.
I don't
Dive
want
into
to cut
Dwan.
you off. I don't want to cut you off, but no, I didn't see that angle until you just said it. I didn't see that angle. Now if you said it, I completely see the angle because I've talked about this before. The 2000s, and I'm gonna let you speak more, Sonny, but I want to make this point. The mid 2000s ushered in the club banger era. Before the 2000s, the club bangers was just a good song that was at a dancing tempo. When you go back to the 90s, when you listen to a lot of the songs that was hitting in the clubs, those were good songs that was just at a dance tempo, especially in the 80s. All that fun ass music in the 80s ain't my type of hype. All that kid, those were some good songs. Especially when you go back to the 70s and talk about what part of it was laying down and what you niggas in Ohio was laying down, all that Ohio funk, all that shit, all that Ohio late 70s funk, that Steve Arrington, nigga, Lakeside, all that LA sound, Rolls Royce, the New York sound, BT Express, D Train on the funk side of the game, the Atlanta sound, Brick out of Atlanta, where you talking about the OJs out of Cleveland, or I mean, this was good fucking music. It just happened to be at a dancing tempo. Barry White out of LA. I mean, Tower Power, what Sonic Family Song was doing in Oakland, it could function out of Oakland. I mean, that was good fucking music. When you get to the 2000s, that's when it's all about the 808 and the snare. And it's not about making a good song anymore. It's about filling that vibration up with 808. Because at 808, when that shit get to pumping, it will reverberate through your spirit. And it don't have to be a good song. If you in a club and you drunk, all you need is that do 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 do. That's that. Everything. Fuck everything else. That's all that matters. Sonny just brought up a good motherfucking point. When you can't go to the club, all of that rattling and shaking and shit don't mean nothing. What is you talking about in your song? What music is gonna get me interested? Because first of all, 9 out of 10 people listening to that shit ain't even got the sound system that's gonna interpret that club music properly. You're gonna get club music interpreted properly. You need some expensive equipment, some subs, some tweeters, some mids, and they got to be adjusted right. If most people listen to the shit in their car, and nigga, your car got goddamn IBM computer speakers in it, rattling and shit. Niggas is listening to music through basic ass headphones. You getting these little, or you listening to it worse than basic headphones. You listening to some Beats headphones. You just got raped, got charged all that goddamn money. Them Beats headphones sound like some shit that my grandmama used to buy me at Kmart. And niggas have spent $400 on them hoes. And they just give you better off spending a third on a pair of basic ass Sonys over buying some damn Beats. But that's a whole nother conversation. Whatever sound system you listen to is probably some bullshit. So it can't even interpret them club bangers properly. So now it comes down to, do you make good music? And so, Sonny, since you said that, I'm going to start studying that personally. Just going back and listening to some music that came out post 2021, and I'm going to keep an eye on that, like moving forward, because it's like you're right. There has been a slight improvement in how some of this music is made post pandemic. Look what happened. What's that boy? Was it NBA young boy? What's a little young nigga that changed up how he talking and all that shit now? I get all these little young niggas confused. I let the young niggas keep their music. I ain't trying to. But I think was the NBA young boy, that little nigga that changed up his whole speech in the last 6 months. I mean, shit, nigga. That's a good point. But go ahead and finish your point, Sonny.
Yeah, the way that people consume music, I perceived it because, like I said, just walking back and forth, like I have a few friends that I talk to the people who actually own some of the clubs, because we just in close proximity. And people were shut down for a long time, Dwan. Like you couldn't do nothing, man. It was a ghost town downtown Orlando for almost a good year. So Even now everything is back open. You know,
LA still ain't recovered either. LA ain't
yeah,
recovered.
exactly. Listen, it's the club scene is not the same. It's not. You know what I'm saying? And people are they're not interested in going to the. You had to sit down for a whole year, put your mask on. You know, a lot of people, you know, recalibrated, and a lot of people consume music differently, and that's it's just not sticking and it's not hitting the same no more. Look at Nas. I don't know how everybody feel about Nas, but Nas has been releasing. You know, he's been having the top rap albums that's been released. You know, out
Yeah.
of the past year and a half. You know, and I'm talking to people in they you know they early 20s. Like, yeah, I'm listening to Nas. You know, Nas this, Nas that. So I just think that definitely has to be studied a lot more. Another thing too, just to end my point, not really worried about the AI thing too much, just because it cannot replicate, you know, actual soul, like Dwan said, or actual instruments. And if any of y'all niggas do mushroom, I'm not advocate. Listen, I'm not advocating for mushrooms, but if
Shit,
y'all niggas
I
do,
am. I was on some shrooms
hey,
yesterday. Go ahead,
hey,
brother.
if y'all niggas do mushrooms, y'all see what I'm talking about. You know what I'm saying with the trees and the plant. Listen, it's actually vibrating at a certain frequency, and these are actually real live living entities. And when you know you're using actual wood for drums, percussion, you know these come from actual natural resources from the earth. And we could you know conversate and break that shit down more. But yeah, man, it's a great room. Dope topic as always. I'm gonna land my mic right there.
Yes, sir. I'm glad you brought that up. Again, people got to follow their own sensibilities. So I'm not advocating. I'm just joking around. You got to follow your own sensibilities. But I'll say this: when people, I went on last year. I tell this story all the time. Last January 2022, I went on a mushroom trip, and I saw the vision for my Black American music tree. This, I was sitting back. I was listening to some Stevie Wonder, and I was listening. And sometimes we on some shrooms. I got these AirPod Maxes. When you that Dolby Atmos sound, the music be coming at you from all kind of different angles, especially the personalized headspace, nigga. And so I'm over here listening to all these fruitful flowers come out of Count Basie's music on some shrooms. And I said, I gotta document this. I'm listening to something. I was listening to Fly Me to the Moon by Count Basie, composed by Quincy Jones, sang by Frank Sinatra. And I was on a shroom trip. When we on shrooms, the moon kind of has like a technicolor look to it, and it be kind of dancing and shit. There's a full moon, and I was listening to "Fly Me to the Moon," and that shit was fucking great. But anyway, I'm listening to "Fly Me to the Moon." Then Stevie Wonder comes on after that, and then I was like, man, I gotta. And then I had a vision. I was like, how am I gonna document our music? I said, I'm gonna put this shit in the tree. And the way the tree y'all see now looks, that shit came as an image in the mushroom trip. And then I partied that night. I went to bed, woke up the next morning, and I did 80% of that music tree just off memory from music because I've always studied music. And I did 80% of that those genres that you see on the Black American music tree. I got on my computer the next day and I was on my computer for 11 hours. And I couldn't get up because them shrooms that trip had me so focused. When I woke up the next morning, I had to get that shit out. My spirit was like, "Go, nigga, do it, do it, do it." And I woke up and I sat at my computer for 11 hours, and I did 80% of that tree just off memory. And then from there, I went and bought like a whole bunch of books. I invested a whole lot of money into some out of print books and research stuff because I was like, if I document this shit, it better be right. I don't want nobody coming along later saying this is wrong. You didn't say that. So I went and spent the next 3 or 4 months just in the tree, making sure chronologically I was accurate. Um, but the whole project came out of a shroom trip. So when people be like, man, that stuff, people get on drugs and it makes you unproductive. Shit, let's compare calendars. If you believe that, let's put my calendar next to yours and let's see how lazy weed smoking and shrooms make a nigga. I challenge anybody to put their calendar next to mine. Matter of fact, I'll be hosting comedy at the Hidden History Museum next Wednesday here in LA. Tariq Hidden History Museum. I'll be hosting on Wednesday. Got a very special surprise guest coming through. Can't announce his name because he's very big time. And We couldn't afford his ass, but he coming through. We got then I got my show coming up Friday, Saturday, April 29th here in LA at the Comedy Chateau. Freeze Love is coming out of retirement from comedy, and he's gonna headline my show. That's me and Larry. We're gonna do our thing, our back and forth thing that make you niggas laugh. And then May 26th, Dallas, Texas. The tickets will be on sale tomorrow. Well, I actually could put the link up there tonight for the conference. I'm doing a comedy show the Friday night before the conference, and those tickets are gonna go up sale tomorrow. And so Dallas, Texas, get your tickets ready for that. And then I got Slink Johnson headlining that show. Black Jesus, he's headlining that show. And then in June, I'm doing my 6-week Cardology Academy for people who want to learn how to read playing cards. If you want to impress your friends and think they're playing poker, but you start reading their whole life to them, when you see that Jack of Diamonds come out, and you be like, you play too much. That class is starting in in June. So it's a whole lot of shit coming up. But I'm glad you brought that up, Sonny, because
Hey, Dwan, can I say this real quick?
Yeah.
Speaking of the cardology thing, I don't know if anybody know about Aquarius Maximus, but she was on Brother Rich not too long ago, and she was speaking about the whole AI thing. And she was saying that, you know, a lot of this AI stuff is going to fail until these people, you know, pay, you know, a certain group of people. Yeah. And she broke it down real eloquently, you know what I'm saying, on Brother Rich and everything like that. So I think that's another dope thing. But just to further elaborate real quick on the pandemic thing, a lot of the music that we was listening to was trash because it was a lot materialistic, and people were laid off. You know what I'm saying? People was I don't. Hey, listen, I'm not going to be on here fronting, bro. But the pandemic was rough. We was trying to make, you know, check to check ends meet. And when you're listening to music and it's stunting and balling, I think a lot of the music industry got exposed, Juan. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, people not really in. But yeah, listen, I'm gonna keep rambling, man, because it's a great conversation. Y'all hear me kind of going off the deep end and shit like that. But I'm gonna fall back, Dwan.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But like, I encourage people, like, look, listen to some music on some motherfucking shrooms. Boy, if you want to hear some music, you want to hear some music, you want to hear some music, go on a trip. I know. Second was first. I do want to get it sincere because I did, but I know second was first. And then I'm going to go to sincere.
Hi, Just Steve, and hello, Dewan. I love you guys. You're awesome. Dewan, I really, again, I just want to just reiterate just my sincere thanks just for your creating the Black American Music Tree. I have a question in relation to AI. Do you think that as we, as foundational / Native Black Americans, as we continue to proudly delineate and with respect to countering AI in our music, do you think that we may have to go back to our roots of the Chitlin circuit, which of course consisted of our network of nightclubs, theaters, juke joints back in the day, in order to, reduce the force of AI in our music?
Wow, I'm glad you brought that up. I'm gonna like bring a different perspective. I love what you just said, but let me bring a different perspective to it, because it's not a fight between AI and natural. See, one thing that the European gets us always in is that they framed our mindset, and this isn't me criticizing you, so don't take it that way or nobody in the room, because this is my mind too. This is, nigga, we all poisoned by this shit. So this is, anytime I'm talking about trying to, something, I always speak from the perspective of I myself is part of this issue, because I was poisoned. We're so framed as Americans to pit one thing against the other. But when we do that, we don't really find resolution. And so it's not about taking AI out. It's all about promoting what's real and putting out there, because a lie needs to be told 1,000 times a day. The truth just stands on its own. So when you put the real against the lie, the real is always going to win. And so it's really about pushing the win. And you said something, sister. I'm glad you said this about like pushing the musician, like going back to the chitlin circuit. Yes, it is taking us back to the chitlin circuit. But the point of going to the chitlin circuit isn't to necessarily directly take AI out. The point of going back to the chitlin circuit is because we as black Americans, Native Black Americans, foundational Black Americans, we're in the middle of a cultural revolution right now. And the cultural revolution, part of a cultural revolution is to take things back to the basics. And the chitlin circuit to the basics. When we were building this country on our own, Saturday night at the chitlin circuit, Friday night is where we got to interpret our issues and traumas and pains and trials and tribulations and joy and love sonically into music, dance, and into poetry and into rap and into comedy. Because we are so dope. We do all that shit. We go through all that shit. And then Saturday night at the chitlin circuit, it turns into the greatest art the world has ever seen. And so right now, we're going through a whole lot of the people. We're as oppressed as we've ever been. And if you think I'm bullshitting, pull up a picture on Instagram of the average Black person today and look at their affect, body language, mood, and pull up a picture of Black people 100 years ago, 60 years ago, and just see, even though we was going through all that stuff, we had a certain pride and dignity. Our chin was always up, shoulder always straight. And it wasn't necessarily about the suit. It was about the energy behind the picture that we had. We had a certain look in our eyes that was not broken. That when you look at us nowadays, I appreciate that Cash App, Logan, I appreciate that. When you look at Black people nowadays, our shoulders are hunched over. We look sad. There's a certain hollowness in our eyes. We just don't have the same about us. We still got it more so than other cultures because we still aren't broken, but we don't have the same, we ain't got that same about us. But one thing about us, we never down for long. That's why we're in this cultural revolution right now, because we getting that back. I think we look better now than we did in 2015. We was looking real fucked up the last 4 years of Obama. We was like, God damn, this nigga ain't gonna do shit. Like shit, nigga, we ain't gonna get a goddamn hip hop tax break, nothing. Shit. So I think our affect looks a little bit better now than it did 7-8 years ago. But I think that the chitlin circuit is coming back because the systems of entertainment are broken. And I was having this conversation with someone recently, and that's why I'm bringing with my comedy shows, I'm bringing in a new style thing. Like when I did my first show at the Hidden History Museum, people were, I didn't have to have. Yeah, my man London Brown came through. That's my guy. He's a nice, big time TV star on Stars and HBO and shit. But I brought in comics that didn't necessarily have a name, but they're funnier than the people with the name. Because what these people have done with stand-up comedy, just like with music, they pick the mediocre talent and put that out front. Like, how often do you guys laugh at a Netflix stand-up special? When was the last time you laughed at an HBO stand-up special? These shits are either chuckle fest or they're boring or they're motherfucker fest like me up, Mike Monique's. And like they don't really, and we've been under this umbrella of 90s comics for 30 years. Like fuck. Like us us out there on the ground on the comedy grind, and I'm gonna get you sincere. Like, dude, we try to bring in a new style of comedy, either you have to sit on stage behind these 90s comics, or the people who book and promote the comedy room, they were the same guys booking and promoting rooms back in the 90s. So they're still looking for Black comics to talk about that 90s style comedy. And 90s style comedy, I love Def Comedy Jam and I love In Living Color. But to tell you the truth, that shit was Coon Fest. Looking back, every joke was about, Black people do everything bad. White people do everything good. Nigga, nigga, nigga. That's every joke on Def Comedy Jam back in the 90s, especially like the later Def Comedy Jam. Niggas are always late. White folks are always on time. Bitch, bitch, nigga, bitch. Bitch, bitch, nigga, nigga, nigga. We late. Ha, bitch, nigga. The people who book are still looking for that bullshit. So right now, comedy clubs are dying. The systems, the record labels are dying. So out of that comes, like here in LA now, the 2 Black comedy clubs are closed. But that's not a big deal because the 2 Black comedy clubs are still looking for them nigga, 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 bitch, nigga, nigga, nigga comics. There are so many comics. Comedy has evolved, except for you guys that aren't in these comedy clubs in LA. You guys haven't heard it yet because they're still promoting that bullshit. But because of that, that shit's dying. And it's out of the ashes, we are the people of the Phoenix. We are the Phoenicians. Phoenix, Arizona, the Phoenicians, both and black people put it together. Anyway, we're the people who bring things out of the ashes. Those systems are burning and dying right now. And out of the ashes is coming up a new thing. And that new thing is the chitlin circuit. And like the show that I did at the Hidden History Museum, it was all comics. That show was, anybody who was there would tell you that shit was killer funny. And these people ain't on TV because it's a whole crop of talented black comics and musicians who ain't got the exposure, who ain't got to deal with Live Nation. And so we're setting up business across the country. I'm doing my show in Dallas. I'm not going to the Improv. I'm not going to these places. I'm going to a black theater that can host this, and I'm bringing you Slink Johnson, Black Jesus, Kamira White, these people who are already certifiably should have been on HBO 10 years ago, but because we have a system that's keeping these people down, you haven't seen them. The chitlin circuit is now affording an opportunity for this talent that's out there. The musicians are out there. It's some dope ass fucking musicians out there, and it's like it's Crenshaw Live, the district here in LA, Spot Off District on Crenshaw, black owned. It's them giving the spot to Ryan Porter, the greatest, the new trombonist out there right now. It's this black-owned coffee shop on Market Street that I was at last week that was featuring Catalyst, a dope young black jazz band out of Inglewood. It's the Chitlin Circuit that's revitalizing true black art.
I
Go ahead,
love what she
Sincere.
said. Oh, before
No,
Sincere
no,
goes,
no. Yeah, go
I
ahead.
love what Second said. Thank you for what you said about the Chitlin Circuit, because that's on code, right? Like when you spin with us for us, that's on code. That's powernomics, and I think that us revitalizing that thought is definitely where we need to go. Um, Shit, we need to have a Green Book back. We need to have Chitlin Circuit back. We need to have Black Wall Street's back. All of that is us being on code. So as long as we can protect it, get your power tools up. Again, happy new Black Media Appreciation Month. Look, Dewan is different, right? I think that everybody who is able to articulate what's going on and can put it in a way that people can understand it, I think that that's something that should be appreciated. So this is why we're having the conversation tonight. Shout out to Dwan. Shout out to the room. I appreciate y'all being here and chopping it up about the music because it matters. People playing their
It
role.
matters. Well, only you said something even about being on code, and this is what I want. This is the point I forgot to say, and I'm glad you said that to finish off my point. On code also requires the artist to be on code. What happened? I'm not gonna mention any names. I just don't want to throw any bad energy out there for people who don't deserve it. But there's you don't know how many times I was in like the office at some of these comedy clubs just kicking in the back, and I'll see certain comics that you guys love that be in a lot of black movies. And all they could talk about is how, yeah, I got these niggas, but I want to cross over. And I was having this conversation with Freeze Love about 5 years ago. He was talking about the difference between the 90s class, his class of comics, and my class. Our classes, for the most part, works together. A lot of your people who are famous on the internet now, from Big Jaw, Daphne Springs, London Brown, Craig, all deaf people, Teddy Ray, man, we all of us just support each other. Like Teddy Ray called me to do roast me when that premiered, and I said no because I was going through depression at the time. And I said no. I didn't know roast me would turn out to be the biggest show on the All Net Digital. But even though I missed that opportunity, all my friends got famous off that opportunity. And it's like, and so some of my friends that got famous off that opportunity, they know the kind of heat that I bring when my head is right. So when my head was right to get back in the game, they said, "Here, Dewan, I got opportunities for you." And we work with each other. We're a lot. My generation, a lot of us are very on code. Like London Brown, he's on Raising Canaan. You know what I mean? Before that, he was on that show with The Rock on HBO. He has a lot to lose, but when I called him same day, hey Tariq, Hidden History Museum comedy show. I didn't know he's in town because he be in New York all the time filming movies and shit. And so I didn't know he's in LA. I saw him put up a Facebook post for it. He's on a different show, a white show. He he still went to that show, but he pushed them back and got there late so he can come and perform for Tariq. Our class is different. And so, you know what I mean? All these cats that have gotten pretty famous online through sketches and comedy, these dudes really do look out for each other. But now we starting to do shows, the Market Street Bar and Grill here in LA in Inglewood. All of the black comedy club promoters, since the comedy clubs are shutting down, they're different, pretty big. The biggest black comedy club promoters are now throwing shows there. And you're starting to see, like my man Slink, when he goes on the road, he's doing these black venues. But what it takes is the black performer to embrace the black audience. Our class, for the most part, is. But for a long time, the black performer said, "I want that white money," and that's what messed up the chin circuit to begin with. The artist and the performer got to be on code with the black chin circuit. I'm not going to abdicate our responsibility and say black folks what black folks need to do. No, us entertainers need to be about our supporting black people. And then when you do get big, always like Dick Gregory always said, when he got big and got started doing them big theaters, that's what made him get on the internet and start doing smaller events. He would always make sure to do some smaller events for black people, what black people can afford to show appreciation. So it takes the artist to get on code too. But go ahead, Sincere.
Yes, sir, man. I mean, so many things that y'all said that I could touch on, but I really came up here to kind of piggyback off of the point that the brother Sonny had made about people being able to differentiate based on what happened during the pandemic and all of that. But before I do that, I just want to say thank you to Eve, thank you to you, Duan, for holding the space. I'm over here, soaking up the game. Dewan, you just got a great way of breaking things down and using music analogies to explain, basic life principles and explain the code and all of that using the music analogies. That's just brilliant. I really want to give you your flowers, brother, because I don't take for granted the fact that you take the time to come on here and pour into us and tell us all of these stories, you know what I'm saying, that you have and that you don't keep it to yourself. I really don't take that for granted at all. I'm glad that you do what you do, brother. And but to add on to the point that the brother Sonny had made, I could bear witness to that from even way before the pandemic happened because early 2000s to the mid 2000s, I was incarcerated. And that's kind of like when the crunk shit came and Lil Jon was real big and all that. And when I was locked up, I didn't get that shit at all. I was like, what the fuck is this? Like y'all listen to this shit? You know what I'm saying? I didn't get it. I could not resonate with it at all. And when I was locked up, I was taking a deep dive into the music, you know what I'm saying? Because I used to look at the samples on a lot of the hip hop records that I loved. I always was into real authentic music anyway. You know what I'm saying? I fuck with some top 40 shit, but I'm more of a deep cut type of dude. I'm more of an underground, you know what I'm saying, or what they call alternative and all that. I always been like that anyway. But when you locked up, shit slows down. You know what I'm saying? So I got into actually reading the samples and I'm saying, okay, I'm gonna get that record. The record that they sampled, I started to collect all of them shits and take a deep dive into the music that I never had a chance to really analyze and sit there and listen to. I would hear it, pops played it, grandmas played certain things or whatever. But for me personally, getting deep into it, I took that time during that time period to do that. So for Lil Jon and all that shit to come on, that shit was like noise in my ears. But when I came home though, and then I was in the club and I was getting my drink on and smoke on, and I started to get acclimated to the environment, then all of a sudden that was my shit. I could understand it then. You know what I mean? So I could definitely understand what the brother was able to peep during that time period in the pandemic. You know what I'm saying?
And man, that's a very very interesting perspective because I understand that perspective from a different angle. You know what I mean? And that's why I like these that's why I like to have sensible conversations because everything is 360 degrees and your angle is no better or worse than my angle. And sometimes you can see things a little bit differently, but it's really the same thing. You dig what I'm saying? And from your angle, you was locked up. I never heard that angle before. For me, I was in the early '90s. I mean, not early '90s, late '90s, early 2000s. I'm teaching myself how to play the drums. And so all I'm listening to is there was this radio station out here in LA called 103.9 KATE, and that was the old school station, and it was actually originally owned by what's his name, Clarence Savon, and so they planned on the Ohio Players. I heard "I Want to Be Free" by the Ohio Players, and if you heard that song, it starts off with this monster drum solo. And so before that, I was playing on 92.3 The Beat, and I was playing "I Get Around" by Tupac. And I guess I just had a natural talent for drums. Like within a day or two of me picking up a pair of drumsticks, I picked up the "I Get Around" beat right away. And so all the rap music, as a drummer, I just picked up right away. It wasn't hard. And then I go over to the old school station, and I hear this monster drum solo. And I'm like, what the fuck is this? And I tried to get that beat, and it took me like a week to get that shit. I'm like, hold on. At that point, I was hooked. I was like, all this music from the '70s, this shit take me a while. And then I got on the Earth and Fire, and then I found out that the dude who produced, who was our music director at my church, his father was Skip Scarborough. He wrote "Love's Holiday" and "Can't Hide Love" from Earth and Fire. "The World is a Masquerade." He wrote "Give You the Best That I Got" to Meet a Baker. "Don't Ask My Neighbor" by The Emotions. So I'm over here as a teenager. I would just soak up game and just ask a bunch of questions about music. And it would just be a whole bunch of music questions, just music. And I got everything answered. Then when I found out one of the guys that played trumpet, he was an actual trumpet player for Earth and Fire. And then one of the other musicians, I guess that's the beautiful thing about living in LA, just regular ass people were doing some great shit. The congo player at my church, he played the congos for Rolls Royce. And so I'm over here in this musical environment and I'm hearing what it took to make good music. Rom Lee Davis was talking about when he toured with Earth and Fire. It's two semi trucks. They had David Blaine, a magician. They taught them magic tricks in between the shows. I mean, during the show. And I'm looking like, whoa, I'm just listening to all this dope information. And Skip Scarborough was telling me about his days managing Confunction in the late '70s and writing these different songs. And then I turn on the hip hop station and I hear, and I had to go to church and I'm over here having to practice modulating from a C to a D, and I'm over here learning these tags and learning all this music. And then I turn on the radio and I'm listening. Now I'm listening to Chick Corea and Herbie Hancock, and I'm into Miles Davis and John Coltrane. And I go back to the regular stations and I'm like, what the fuck is this? But before I started teaching myself how to play the drum, it all sounded the same. And I had gotten so immersed in the '70s music and into jazz. Then when I was just totally disconnected from anything that came on the radio from like '98 to like 2006 is when I peaked back in. Like I was still listening to certain stuff. Like I would always listen to Common when he dropped something. You know, Erica Badu, the neo soul style. I was into that. I was into Kanye when he first came out and his productions. You know what I mean? It was certain people I would listen to, but outside of that, if Nelly was on, man, turn that shit off. If there's some Ja Rule, you better hope I don't have a gun. I'm gonna shoot these speakers out of you with some whatever I do, whatever I be. I'm listening to this shit. I just finished listening to goddamn uh the Whispers sing that 5-part harmony. Olivia lost and turned out. You nigga, don't buy that nigga a Cadillac. Don't be a hoe. Now I gotta come back and listen to this nigga talk about something. Whatever I do, whatever I be, man. I just couldn't fuck with it. You know what I mean? So that's what it is. When you kind of have that experience disconnected from it and you immersed in the real thing, you see the difference. But when you go to the club, the 2000s was also my club years. I'm that 41-year-old nigga that's not. I'm married now, so I got all my clubbing out by the time I turned 33. But between 19 and 33 here in LA, oh my God, I didn't have to wait in the line in any club. Everybody knew me. I would go to the front, and I would be in every club, at every party. And when that shit would come on the radio, I'm listening to Jeezy, Young Jock, that whole era. Nigga, if we in Colony, the Garden of Eden, Element, Bask, any of that shit, oh man, that was my shit. But when we leave the club, if that shit came on in my car, man, if you don't get this shit off my radio, who's next?
Well, it was, I think it was Chase, but he dropped down. It's back on Miriam.
Oh, thank you. Um, Brother Dewan B, you are such a solid dude. When I met you at the reparations rally and then the after party, you pretty much the same person. Like you're really solid. You don't change up on who you are, and I appreciate that about you. Um, Happy Black Appreciation, Black Media Appreciation Month, um, to you as well as to Brother Sincere. I love you, brother, and the music that you give and the knowledge that you drop for the community as well. I'm just blessed to be around, and shout out to you, Brother Sonny. I think he probably left, but I appreciate all our musicians like Brother Sage and Brother B. Silla, especially those who have their own bands and doing their own thing. It's just beautiful. Um, when you were speaking about the fact, yes, when you in the club, that sounds great, but at home, it's like I won't say overpowering or overwhelming. Is you just don't want to tolerate that. You prefer, um, to listen to the soul of it all, the good, the true R&B like the Whispers and Rolls Royce, Ohio Players, and Switch, and um, all of that. Cool, even Cool in the Game and them, and all of them when they were out. And um,
Cool, that's what cut you off. Everything cool in the gang except for Joanna. Oh, I
Yes.
hated that Joanna. Joanna, no, fuck Joanna. Wait, everything else, yeah. But go ahead, but go ahead.
I agree. Joanna kind of was like no, but indeed, um, it definitely those things and um, the Michael Jackson Off the Wall, um, Prince Dirty Mind, and I mean, it was just a lot of good music back then. And the SOS band, my goodness, Confunction, um, man, I could go on and on. That's music right there. You have the Borcades and all of them doing the heavy funk and the fusion with that, and like you said, um, Miles Davis. You had Bird, Count Basie, um, Duke Ellington. It was just that's just beautiful music, and it's elevating music, and it's music that make you think and create because that's what they were creative, they were on that creative vibration, and a lot of times unfortunately somehow musicians were under the influence, so they were already on another level, and by no means are we promoting to use substance or alcohol or any of that, but if you take something and you going to be in an alternated state instead of being destructive and things like that, they chose because they were artists, they actually created on these spiritual and divine levels that push themselves even further, shall I say, on those levels. And when you were talking about the mushroom things, I never did mushrooms, by the way, but I've often um,
talk with people who have and the experience that they have and the fact that you're they see things in colors and the vibration of how things are. Everything has a voice or a vibration because mushrooms is the cilius of the planet. It is like the root system of the planet. So you're dealing with high information, the voice of communication of nature. So yeah, I could relate to that. And I yield my time. Thank you.
Oh yeah, yeah. You're right about it is a voice note. So sorry, I was texting my weed man. Maybe you think, hey, fucking get it when it's short. Anyway, my bad. So no, you're right though. It is the mycelium network, the network that trees communicate with, is what is in the mushroom. And again, I don't advocate. I'm the kind of person do what you do. If somebody tell me about taking some mushrooms 10 years ago, I was like, man, get the fuck out of my face. I ain't doing that shit. You know what I mean? But I've always been lazy. I've always kind of been like a kind of square, but I'm a hippie. I'm a square, but I am definitely a hippie. But I follow the rules. Like for me to sound, I didn't really start drinking till I was 21. I didn't really start smoking weed till my second knee surgery when I was like 30. I smoked weed a little bit before that, but I didn't really start a lot of time. Until my second, I didn't want to be on none of them pain medications. And then I started doing mushrooms because one of my friends who thinks kind of like me, I was like at a creative, I was going to do a serious creative block. He told me for like 3 years, do some mushrooms, do some mushrooms. I'd be like, man, I ain't doing that shit. I ain't doing that shit. I ain't doing that shit, man. Weed is good enough. Then one day I tried it, and then I was like, but I didn't try it until like it felt right in my spirit. You know what I mean? When it didn't feel right in my spirit, I didn't do it. You can't let nobody tell you to do shit. You can only do what's right in your spirit. And everybody got their levels. I got friends that do acid. I'll never do no fucking acid. I ain't doing shit that went through a lab. I ain't doing no acid. I ain't doing no LSD. I got friends that do it, and they had great experiences. Some of my musician friends have made some great music off LSD, and it sounds fun. Sounds great. I'll never do it. But at the same time, I'm not going to judge those who do. For some people, if that's within their vibration range, who the fuck am I to tell them that they wrong? You dig? So it's just like you got to go at whatever level you go with. Mine stops at shit that grows out of earth. Weed comes out of earth, mushrooms come out of earth. That's my limit. I'm good. You know, if it goes to a lab, I'm good. Yeah, next. But
Dewan said you get Breaking Bad on him. It's a
mm,
no go. We good on
yeah,
the chemistry.
yeah, I'm cool on that. I don't want no nigga chemist doing. Nah,
No, but that's real talk, Miriam. I mean, sometimes under certain influences, the musics. I love that we can just take some words and put them together, and people know what we're talking about. The maths sometimes under certain influences, and you can hear it in some of the music. AI is never going to be able to replicate that. I mean, it's going to sound like some drug induced shit, but it's not going to be some shit that we can rock with, not for real, for real. So I'm, I guess, excited about the resurgence of the instruments of it all. And, shout out to Sunny for bringing that back up. People did have time to listen to music. Like the music that was in the forefront, people weren't in those environments anymore. So they weren't being exposed to it. There was no reason to rock to it. Um, and I get that. I can appreciate the pandemic for certain things like that. I know everybody was kind of sad about being in the house and locked down and around the same people, but there's a certain beauty in the monotony. You get to
there was a
learn
certain
and
clearance.
practice.
There was a certain clearance. Like that was a reset. It was a for real reset. You know what I mean? That virus,
Yeah, facts.
and we needed it. And I look at things big picture. Yes, I'm black. I'm a Gemini. I can see things on multiple levels. I can see things on the regular day to day, mundane, earthly level, and I can also see things from the higher perspective. And and because both exist at the same time, just like Channel 7 and Channel 11 are both playing TV shows at the same time. Why niggas argue over levels, I'll never understand. Um, so on the higher level, Earth had a chance to be reborn again. I don't know about you guys, but during the pandemic, man, I was all across my Golden State. Every 2 months, me and my wife we in Lake Tahoe, then we up in Mount Shasta, then we up in down in like in the desert. I mean, and the earth just sort of it was green, the air was crisp. It just was a certain time where when the roads were empty and people were at home, it just felt like Mother Earth, she was breathing again. Like she was like, these niggas is at home. You know what I mean? And then a lot of things just cleared out. You saw with all we needed was what 2 months with no basketball for those the George Floyd riots to pop off and for that summer to really be hot. And then LeBron James said, "We time let's play some basketball. We need to get the basketball season started." NBA bubble season starts. Resistance over. You saw how quick that happened. You know what I mean? It was this what went on. But we saw a contrast. We saw the pandemic heightened the contradictions. And like what Sonny said, a lot of that music got cut out and got exposed. The industry got exposed, and you really got to see, you know, it's been a new time ever since then. And when it comes down to the music, Eve, you said something about live instrumentation earlier. See, like when you really listen to music from the '70s, and I always go back to music from the '70s because that was the last time Black people created music without white interference. That was the last time from the pen to the production, and the only thing the white folks was there for the legal paperwork and to make sure the albums got distributed to wherever vendors they were going to. You know what I mean? We owned the labels. And so that was the last time our music was uninterrupted. We got to arrange music the way we wanted to arrange it and under the terms we wanted those arrangements done. The '80s, the late '70s, when they spent the late '70s buying up all of the independent Black record labels. So by the time you get to the '80s, now you got white executives making the final decisions. And so when you get that corruption getting involved, that's when I always make the break in the music when they got involved in our shit. So that's why for anyone who ever asked me why do I always go back to the '70s, that's why. That was the last time we got to make music on our own terms. So and of course there have been exceptions here and there where Erica Badu had to do with the hidden beach sound out of Philadelphia. Of course there are always exceptions. There's always one dickhead that's gonna be like, well, that one artist, nigga, it's always exceptions. I'm talking about overall. Um, so what so when it comes down to it, I go back to the era because when you listen to the layering and when you listen to the underneath sound and some stuff like I was listening to "Love Will Find a Way" by Lionel Richie, and I was talking to my father-in-law about that song and his production. And I heard this part when I was on mushrooms that I didn't hear before, and it's a part where he has the background singer underneath. When you get to the last third of the song, he has a set of background singers that are whispering the music. If you're just listening to the song through a regular speakers, you're not going to hear them. But if you're listening to some good quality speakers and you're really just listening to the music, you hear them sort of just whispering real low underneath the music. And then there are these small little sonic ticklings with the guitar that just layer throughout the music. And that gives you an overall experience for 4 minutes and 43 seconds that when they made the music plastic that they took out. And something that once the music goes AI, it can never do. So like everything else, Black people were the ultimate alchemists. Every single time these crackers are throwing an extreme curveball our way, we always, 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 always responded with some dope shit. You can't think of a time that we didn't. when they threw this curveball at us with R&B and they made our R&B shitty in the 80s, we made hip hop. We made rap. We just came up with a whole new genre of fucking music. Like, dude, like, I don't think we understand how fucking dope we are. Like, in the in the in the when in New Orleans, they outlawed jazz in New Orleans 100 years ago, and so the proliferation of jazz kind of leveled off in some ways in New Orleans because they were outlawed teaching it. So the center of jazz just moved from New Orleans to Kansas City. And then when Kansas City became the center of jazz, swing really took off. And then New York had its own style. It was like, okay, y'all gonna shut shit off in New Orleans, fine. We'll just move the sound to Kansas City. Move the sound to New York. And then Detroit got popping. Then they did all that shit with Detroit. The Mafia tried to was putting that heavy hand on Motown. Motown was like, okay, we'll move. Okay, y'all want to gentrify Detroit? Fine. Then okay, all right, then now LA's gonna be the hot music scene. Okay, cool. Ohio. Them niggas weren't ready for that. Ohio just came out of nowhere. It was just like, okay, that's Philadelphia. Okay, whatever they do to us, we just be like, all right then. And then we redo some new shit and it comes out of nowhere. And it's great. The only thing that ever stops it is the old people, us, the people that have gotten past the young age. We just generally, not we, because, we haven't had our turn yet. But overall, generationally, we shit on the kids. And so when the kids do come up with something great, instead of the old niggas capitalized on it, y'all old niggas are saying, you need to go to church. That ain't real music. Music in my day. And while we talking about music in my day, the Latinos are over here taking notes and they come into the dance parties. And then in 30 years, the Latinos are going to be saying that they created it and all they was doing was watching and taking pictures. Like I was gonna do a show tonight breaking down John Leguizamo, but we doing this. I'm gonna break that down tomorrow. Leguizamo trying to take hip hop on my YouTube channel. I'm
Man,
trying to clip.
somebody got a thread going. Leguizamo lies. That shit is wild.
Please tag me in it. Please tag me.
I will definitely tag you in it.
Please tag me. I'm breaking him down tomorrow. And
will you follow me so that you can see some of my things? Thank you.
Okay, I'll do that. Mm-hmm. And so like the Latinos go around claiming shit, and then you got the Asians claiming shit because all the old niggas is telling the young niggas they don't know what they doing. That's the thing we need to change, because this AI is about to spark a change in our babies. Our babies about to do some dope ass shit. It's just that when our babies do some dope ass shit, us old niggas need to be there to guide them and to usher them, and not stand in front of them, but stand beside them. That's the mistake that we've been making. We've developed one of the downsides of the culture we developed since the manumission laws of 1804 is this culture of selling out our own. Ever since the system of white supremacy and this war against the European America has been faced with us, during slavery, we developed this culture of selling our youth up the river. And the swing generation, the jazz generation, the ragtime generation did that to the jazz generation. The swing generation did that to the bebop generation. The bebop generation did that to the funk generation. Funk generation did that to the hip hop generation. Niggas selling each other out because we more sophisticated. We do this better. We assimilate better than these crackers. You little young niggas don't know what y'all doing. We've had a few hundred years of that behavior. That shit needs to stop. And it needs to stop with us fucking millennials. It needs to stop with us. We can't be that. We can't make that mistake them damn baby boomers made. What if the baby boomers, think about this shit. The baby boomers embrace two things, hip hop and Jordan. Fuck everything else. If instead of saying, you need to stop wearing Jordans, if y'all, what do them old ass niggas, baby boomers do? These motherfuckers is buying extra Cadillacs. These niggas was doing all kind of, buying chains with pendants on them and pendulums on them and doing all kind of old nigga shit, buying all kind of Easter out. Niggas wearing Easter outfits all summer, them linen suits, All them old niggas did was buy linen suits and Cadillacs to go to Vegas and shit. And what if they, instead of saying shitting on the kids for buying Jordans, saying, everybody wearing Jordans now. What if we open up a little Jordan shop back when we still owned the hood back in the '90s when real estate was cheap? What if niggas just said, you know what, let's get a Jordan boutique shop because that's what the Asians did. That's what the Arabians did. They set up Jordan boutique shops. While the old niggas was like, why y'all wearing Jordans? That's why to this day, I didn't even wear Jordans back then. I got a whole bunch of free pair of Jordans because niggas be hooking me up. But anyway, I didn't start wearing Jordans like the last 10 years. And the reason why I started wearing Jordans is because I'm an asshole. I like being counter to whatever the fuck people think is cool. So I heard a whole bunch of people talking about in my circles. I heard a lot of people in my circles talking about Jordan's this, Jordan's that, Jordan's reason. And I was like, man, niggas was fucked up long before some Michael Jordan ever was born. So I started wearing Jordans just so I can piss niggas like that off. And because that's what we do. So we've got to be the generations that stop these little bullshit ass petty arguments and petty judgments with our babies and embrace whatever the fuck it is that they do. And to me, going back to New Black Media Month and on being on code, back to the original topic, uh, the elders got to be on code with the youth because the youth is always constantly creating dope shit. Our kids are always, always creating dope shit. They don't stop creating dope shit. It's like dope. Like that's just who the fuck we are. So being on code is the generations coming on code together. And when they come out with some new form of music that is inevitably going to piss us off, because it's supposed to piss us off, because they have a sound that's going to be unique for their time. Their sounds are going to be around when we're gone, when we're dead for 20 years. Their sounds are still going to be around. And we got to give them that space. You dig? We don't have to always like it. But we do have to have a mindset of owning and controlling it, whatever it is, even if it sucks. White people own and control all kind of horrible ass music. I'll give y'all a homework assignment. Look up this genre of music called outsider music. It's on my music tree. Some of the weirdest shit ever. Matter of fact, one of the biggest songs actually by a black dude is a song called Rock and Roll McDonald's. It's some weird, eclectic, corny, bullshit ass music. But as horrible as that fucking music is, white folks is making money hand over fist with a hand. Because all it takes is a handful of people to love it. A handful of people that love it, you're gonna be listening to that shit the rest of your life. You're gonna be making money the rest of your life off of, a couple 100,000 people, a couple million people out of billions of people who love it. You get a handful of people that love it, and they make money off of all kind of horrible shit. So when our youth create some shit that we deem horrible, be like, man, you know what? This shit sucks, but let me position myself to make some bread off this shit and own and control what we do. That's what being on code is. Not selling our kids out because they ain't doing it the way we do.
Facts. Oh my goodness. What a night. Um, Y'all have been rocking with us for a minute this evening. I just want to give another shout out to the room and a big happy new Black Media Appreciation Month. Tonight we've been talking about the music. I really love conversations where we're talking about what we're supposed to be doing. And while we didn't really give anybody any instructions per se, I think you know what you're supposed to be doing. I think you can feel it. Like you know if you're supposed to be on a flute or if you're supposed to be on a sax. And speaking of the sax, real quick, I think it died in '93 with Bill Clinton. I'm not sure. I think he might have
Oh,
killed it.
good point. You right, because it was some songs still in 92, 91
I'm
that
saying.
had a sax. Good point. Okay, I'll take that.
So for what it's worth, I think that our Phoenix, I think that's what we're doing. Foundational Native Black America is having a Phoenix of sorts. And we're coming back to where we're supposed to be. We're bringing the fire. We're reminding people what's ours and that they can't have it, at least not without permission and certain tribute being given. So I appreciate spaces like this where we can kind of talk about that stuff. And again, shout out to you, Devon. I appreciate you coming out tonight and chopping it up with me in the room. Because I think that how you put things is different. I think that when people can listen to a story and make it relative to what's going on in their life, that matters. I think comedians do a really good job with making things matter, even though people might not have thought about it in the way that it's being presented. So, shout out to you for that. But I think I'm gonna go ahead and wrap up this space. I don't know if you had any last words or final thoughts. We are gonna be live again tomorrow with Taisha Essex. We're gonna chop it up with her. She's a new mommy again, so that's on the Pick Me podcast. And then on Thursday, we'll be live on the Pick Me Godcast on YouTube, so definitely check us out. The link is on my timeline. I see Sincere still in the audience. It's on his timeline too. And like Dwan said, check out everything that he's got going on. Man, people talk a lot of shit about potheads, but man, I've seen you working. So shout out to you and your drive, because I think that drive and competence, I think that's what I've been hearing recently, especially from, like, if you listen to the business or TBA or any of those circles. You got to have drive, you got to have competence. So being driven and being competent, we need more of that. So definitely appreciate being around those examples.
Yeah, just in closing, I appreciate that. Yeah, tomorrow I love Taisha essay, so I want to tune in, but I got I'm doing earthquakes show tomorrow, and then I'm going into my weirdo shit tomorrow night. I do a what's called a sound bath with the sound bowls. My trainer, she does a sound bath meditation, and my wife, we she has a crystal company where she sells crystals and shit, amethyst and all that good stuff, and she's like great with that. So it's like some very hip. I told you I'm a hippie, so it's very much so some hippie shit to where we meditate some tuning bowls with crystals and shit. It's in Beverly Hills. So I'm gonna be doing that shit tomorrow night. And then I'm also gonna be reading people's cards. So I'm a hippie, I'm weird, but I hustle, I work. And I love black people, I love myself. And I think that I don't have my only motive is just to help educate, because my point of view is black people aren't stupid, we're just misinformed. And the minute we get a little bit of information, man, we do some dope ass shit. You dig? And all we need is just a little bit of sliver of truth. And the minute we get a sliver of truth, man, we do exactly what James Brown said. James Brown had a song that said, I don't want nobody to give me nothing. Open up the door, I'll get it myself. And that's our music at its highest level. That's who we are at our highest level. We don't want nobody to give us shit. Well, we do want our motherfucking reparations, but that's just what we own. That's just what that is. But open up the door, I get it myself. And that's how we get down. If they let the door open, we wouldn't need no goddamn reparations. We would have been getting it ourselves. But since they put a padlock on the door and put one of the big ass bank vault safety doors and the whole military in front of it, so we couldn't get in, give us our motherfucking reparations. We told you to open the door, you wouldn't open it. Now just give us the whole fucking building, dude. You dig? So that's just where we are right now. Music is harmony. Life is harmony. You know, and being on code is harmony. But the only way we can be in harmony is if you get to the level yourself. We can't be in harmony if you ain't hitting your note. If the note is A flat, god damn it, hit the A flat. Don't be like, man, but my mama didn't treat me right, so I can't hit the A flat. Don't do no little dumb shit like, well, I would hit the A flat, but I got this little white girlfriend over here. I'm trying to find me a little Latina. So, but you know, it's always them niggas that want to find themselves Latina that be like, man, we can't ever get together. Yeah, nigga, because you ain't hitting your note. And I ain't criticizing niggas who like, because there's some niggas who screw outside the race who can be on code, but 98% of you niggas ain't. You know what I mean? Hit your fucking note and stop looking for the next nigga to do something for you. And that's all I want to say. And follow me at the Wambi everywhere, DWANB. My Dwambi.com will be next Wednesday. We got the Hidden History Comedy Show, me and Tariq, next Wednesday. You got my comedy show, The Comedy Chateau, that following Saturday. You got my YouTube show tomorrow. I'm breaking down John Leguizamo. I'm going to be digging into his history and who he really is. And then we're going to be talking about some shit that he said, cleaning up some of his lies about hip hop and culture and all that shit. And so tune into my YouTube and follow all that shit. Thank y'all for listening.
Facts. Definitely hit the follow, tune in, and y'all have a good night. Black First.